Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Shomler. This is Zach Shomler Talking, episode 43. And joining me is, I actually don't know how to say her name. Is it Balin or Balin? How do I say her name
Balin.
properly?
Yes, it's
It's
Balin.
Balin. Balin, we've actually been, I don't know if the word is like corresponding, but we've talked and been in each other's orbits for a long, long time and never
Yeah.
quite connected. I think can I say where you live? Down
Yeah.
I-5 from me?
Yeah.
I think you live in Eugene, which I think is not that far from me. I'm in Portland. We really should meet each other at some point. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's we tried to a couple of years ago and it just didn't work. It just scheduling didn't work with something. I don't remember exactly what happened, but
in all honesty, my life was a total disaster at that time. Like trying to do anything with me at that point was a
Mhm.
futile effort. If I'm
Well, and I
totally
was
honest.
also in the process of leading up to a wedding, so like I was crazy busy too. It
Was it your wedding or someone else's?
was mine. It was mine.
Oh, that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to like frame whatever this is. You're not a famous musician or like a famous athlete or a crazy famous quarterback, and that's intentional. I have the idea and the belief that you can have a philosophical conversation with anybody, and it can be interesting. And I actually am way more interested. I would rather talk to you, believe it or not, than Kyler Murray. I know that's weird, but like I'm more interested in like, frankly, I don't know how to say this nicely, like normal people, like for lack of a better
I,
term, right? Does that
no,
offend you? I don't know.
no, not at all. No, there's hardly anything you could say that would offend me, honestly.
Fair enough.
I am totally normal person. I'm totally cool with that. I wouldn't want to be famous. That sounds like hell. Uh, I mean, would it be cool to have my name known? Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. But to like be famous, not really my thing.
I've always thought if you're going to be famous, you better be rich, and I'd rather be rich than famous, like for sure.
If I win the lottery, I'll drop off the face of the earth and I will just live in a cabin in the woods and that'll be that.
Where would you go? Have you ever thought about where you would? I think about it all the time. Like that's my Roman Empire, by the way. Is I think about the apocalypse or like if I got rich and where I would go hide in the woods, basically all the time. It's too much.
I don't know specifically. Uh, my wife and I have kind of bounced the idea of around of getting all of our closest friends and then just building this giant commune in the middle of fucking nowhere and just living off grid if we ever won the lottery. Where that is, no idea.
Dude, I think about that all like literally all the time. That's like my obsession is living off grid. Actually, I like that's people wonder like what kind of content I watch or pay attention to. It's not sports. It's not like sports podcasts. I watch like videos of people building cabins in like Alaska, like 200 miles from civilization. Like that's what I'm personally interested in, and I I never know how to like you can't. I don't know how to make content about that in what I'm doing right now, but I want to make something very clear. I want to like kind of lay the groundwork for this conversation. I'm going to ask you a lot of tougher questions, and I think it's only fair that any question I ask you, I'm very comfortable answering myself. I think that's is that. Do you agree to that? Does
Yep.
that sound fair?
Yep.
And then on top of that, like I want to say this not just privately but publicly. Anything you want cut out of the show, if you're like, hey, I don't feel comfortable talking about that topic, or maybe like that went somewhere dark, and I don't want my family knowing that. Like, I'll cut whatever out of the show. Like, this is not a gotcha show. I just want to have a philosophical conversation, and I say that on the show live. That anyone else listening who might want to come on the show in the future knows, hey, I'm a safe person to talk to, and I'm very comfortable cutting stuff out and appeasing you and bending to whatever fits best for you to be public about your life. Because I acknowledge I'm going to ask you a lot of stuff, and you're really putting yourself out there, and I appreciate that.
Mm. Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with all of that. Everything that I'm going to say is stuff that pretty much everybody in my family already knows. They know like the darker topics. They know about all that. Everyone in my life knows about that. I'm totally cool, comfortable, confident, secure, and all of that. I have no issues talking about it at all.
Hell yeah, man. Well, let's start. What do you do? Like, tell me about your life. You live in Eugene. What's your job?
Mhm.
Like, what are you doing with your life currently?
Yeah, so we actually just got in oh my god, stumbling over my words. We just
You're
got
okay.
done moving back to both of our hometowns of Springfield, just across I-5. Um, so that's been the last month or so. But as far as work goes, I do accounts payable work, which just pay my company's bills. Super riveting stuff. uh, what comes along with that? Oh, what?
Oh, I would say you're actually highly important. The accounts payable person at my company is the person we all like. Her name's Roxanne, and wherever Roxanne goes, like she's a very powerful person actually at our company. Like we need her
Yeah.
badly.
All of I figured this out real quickly when I started doing this a couple years ago. All of the company's problems end with you. As the accounts payable person, they end with you. Everything that happens, everything that gets fucked up at receiving, anything like that goes through you because you're the last step before the money leaves the company. So you get to see all of the problems and you have to fix everybody else's stuff. It gets old. It's it's enjoyable sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
highly repetitive and obnoxious trying to fix other people's screw ups all the time.
Do you have a finance degree? Is that kind of how you end up doing a role like that?
Nope. No, accounts payable generally you don't need any sort of degree. A lot of places like to have experience. But if you're
Mm.
talking like getting into actual accounting stuff, then yes, you would. Most places require you to have a degree. I kind of fell into it because I used to do sales on the floor,
Oh, wow.
and I'm not a people person. I'm really not. I was a stalker first. I needed a little more money, so I went up to sales. I did that for about 11 months and was about ready to rip all my hair out. I put in my 2 weeks, um, and then the store manager, who was relatively new to being the store manager, but he'd gone through our department, so he'd worked with me pretty closely for a while.
Mm.
He was like, "No, no, no, hold on. We'll figure this out." And eventually, I found myself up in the corporate office doing accounts
He's like,
payable.
how do we keep you? You're awesome, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. It was really validating at the very least
Mm.
to get that kind of response from the company. Um, but yeah, no, you don't really need any sort of degree.
Mm. What kind of sales did you do? Like what product were you selling?
I sold flooring and tile and window blinds and stuff like that. Um,
Interesting.
so I like to think of it as I wasn't really selling the product. Really, what you're selling is installations.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't think of it like that because that to me sounds not scammy is not the word that I'm looking for, but that's the word that's coming to mind.
Mm.
It just doesn't feel genuine. So
Mm.
I always kept it in the mindset of I'm helping people complete their projects. And that's kind of how they want you to look at it, even though that's not the end goal, because they have all these other systems in place to, make sure you're selling your installations and projects completely and fully, right? Because they want to, because that's where the money is. Um,
Mm.
but they pitch it as, and I thought of it as, you're helping the customer complete their projects. So I tended to focus more on the actual customer engagement and actually like teaching them about the product and giving them the information that they would need rather than just immediately diverting them to like, hey, why don't you have us install it? Um, Especially if they were, if they came in with the idea they wanted to do it themselves. I gave them the option, but I forgot what the original question was. I kind of went on a rant there.
Well, it's interesting. I've got a lot to say because I think you would know, but maybe the audience doesn't know I work in HVAC sales. So like, I'm constantly like, you can't come to my company, Able Heating and Cooling, and buy just an air conditioning unit, for example. We install it for you. Like, you can't just walk
Yeah.
off with an air conditioning unit. It sounds like what you were selling, you theoretically could buy tile from you guys and just drive off with it. But
Oh
the
yeah.
best path for the company was you bought it and we installed it for you. So you're kind of selling the company, I guess, right? You're selling the
hmm
idea that we're going to install it better than someone else can, correct?
hmm Yeah. So yeah, just for the sake of the extra level of security, I won't say the company's name that I work for, but I
Sure,
will say
totally.
it is a home improvement company. It is not one of the big two national ones. I will say that it's a
Mm,
local one.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, anyone in the area would probably know what I'm talking about, but anyone outside of the area can have absolutely no idea, and I love that. But yeah, so
I can imagine, but
we're
I
a
won't.
retail
Yeah, I
store.
won't
We're a
go there.
retail store. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a retail store, so you can just come in and buy stuff off the shelf if you want to, or you can talk to us and we can have our installers install it.
Was sales difficult? You I think described yourself as more of a like I think you said the word introvert. Am I crazy? Did you say that?
Yeah, if I didn't say that, it was basically that. Yeah, um, yeah. So it was hard.
What
It
was
was
challenging about sales? Yeah, go ahead.
the people interaction. That sounds silly,
Mm,
but I knew the product so well that I didn't
mm,
struggle with the product itself. The
mm,
product knowledge was fine. It was the talking to people who were already stressed out themselves because I mean you're selling $10,000 $12,000 projects to these people, so they're about to
Yeah.
drop a lot of money that they've worked a long time to save up for. You want to make sure it's right, but then on top of that, they're stressed, and I tend to reflect what people are feeling. So even though I may not outwardly show it to them, I'm picking up on all of their signals, all of their stress, and so
Mm.
it just builds inside of me because I internalize a lot of it. And that just got really, really draining after even 6 months. Um,
Oh, I bet.
that's not for
Was it
me. Not for me.
exhausting?
It was so exhausting. It was so exhausting. And then on top of that, because I was a pretty good freight stalker as well, um, whenever I wasn't doing sales work, I was working freight too. So I was doing a whole bunch of physical labor on top of that.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was just not a good situation overall. It's not for me.
Yeah, you must have been physically exhausted and emotionally exhausted, which is not a fun combination at all, I would imagine.
Yeah, no. And then on top of that, I should mention also for context, I started sales a month before COVID.
Oh boy. Okay. Okay.
So then that whole thing happened right as I was getting like finally starting to get the hang of it. Um, and then the whole world went to hell.
How did you
So there was that
even
other
was it
layer.
just you're in masks or like how do you even sell during like 2020? How does that even work?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had these extendable batons that extended to 3 feet because average arm length is somewhere around 3 feet. So you extend that at arm's length, that gives you 6 feet. So you kind of know how far away you are. You can use it to point at things that are near a customer. And then we had tape around the desks in the departments, and we had plexiglass shields,
Man.
and we had masks. So another layer of frustration there on top of all of this money that these people are dropping on these projects.
Yeah.
It was a time. It was a time.
Was it helpful that I would imagine COVID was a time though where everyone's doing projects. They're all at home.
Oh
Didn't
yeah,
didn't the construction industry actually boom like a lot
it
during that time?
exploded. Yeah,
Yeah.
our best year all time, I believe, was 2021.
Mm.
Because that was kind of the peak of everything. Because a lot of people were still at home a lot. But then we'd had those few stimulus checks on top of that. So
Mm.
2021 ended up being dollar wise our best year ever.
Yeah. Totally. You're married. When did you get married? Like how old are you?
Uh,
How old are you by the way?
I
Like roughly. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm almost 26. I turned 26 in 26 days actually. Um,
Nice.
I got married in what is 2 years ago? What's it, 24, 22? So June 18th of 22. I forgot
That's
what
hey,
year
at
it
least you
was.
know the actual date. You know like the June 18th
Yeah.
part. That's
Yeah.
well
Okay.
done.
So that's relevant to later on. We'll get around to why that day was picked.
Did you? Am I crazy? Did you go to University of Oregon? Did you go to school there? Is that something I
No.
made up in my head?
Yes,
You
that
did
is
not.
something you made up in your head. No, I did not.
I think I
I
assumed because we
actually,
I knew you were there, so I just assumed like oh naturally you must be a
yeah.
student, right? Like
Well, I am in school right now, doing online school with Lane Community College. But I spent one term at Oregon State right out of high school, uh, and I was lazy. I was super lazy in high school, and I didn't get my financial aid in order. And then we got completely screwed on our FAFSA, and so I had no financial aid except for one singular loan that didn't cover the whole term. And then this whole series of events happened, and I basically lost my login information to be able to start making payments on the loan, so it defaulted,
oh,
and that was a
I'm
whole
so
big
sorry,
thing.
dude.
But that kept me out of school, so I went to Oregon State for one term, and then all of that kept me out of school for a long time until just recently I finally decided to go back.
Hey,
But
I
not a
commend
do about.
you. I want to say I commend you for going back because I don't know if anyone knows, maybe listening or not. I went to 4 different colleges. I don't have a degree, and I regret not having a degree. It's made my life significantly harder. But also, like the thought of going back now is horrifying, and I commend you for doing that because that's a really difficult decision to like, and especially because when you're working full time and you're married, so like finding time, even though it's online, I would imagine still is challenging. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, 5 credit hours is 5 credit hours. It's the same workload. It's just from home. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah. Well done, man. It's interesting. You grew up in Springfield, you lived in Eugene, and you went to Corvallis briefly, but you sounds like you've always lived in this little tiny area of the world and not
Hmm.
left much. Is that true?
For extended periods of time, yes. And
Hmm.
I say this with the qualifier of I've left the country one time in my life. For the most part, yeah, I've just stuck on the West Coast. Uh, I've only been hell. I've even only been to Disneyland twice.
Mm.
Um, I've been to Seattle one time. I've never been to Hawaii. I've been to the Redwoods once, and I went to Ketchikan, Alaska, to visit my dad when he lived there for a few weeks. Other than that, until recently, I had never really been anywhere other than this little pocket of the Willamette Valley
Yeah.
until we went to Greece, but which was an awesome trip. But yeah, I've been just stuck here, and I'm totally comfortable with that. Honestly,
Mm.
I don't have a desire to live anywhere else. I don't see myself ever living anywhere else. Everything I need's here. Even my future career is here. Provide as long as everything lines up, which it should. Um, I don't have a desire to live anywhere else.
You said so many interesting things there. I don't even know how to like. I've been taking notes, and it's like, oh my gosh. But one thing you touched on: what's your future career? What does that mean? Where are you headed as a person?
Ecology.
Oh,
So the study
cool.
of the environment and how all the different aspects and elements of that interact with each other to tell you the health of the environment. Um, it wouldn't be any sort of like administrative thing because there's a few different avenues you can go with that. A lot of people think of like advisory stuff. Like if you're working in the private sector, it's going to be a lot of monitoring the impacts of businesses on the environment.
Mm.
But if you go for the government side, which is what I'm hoping to do, it's managing parks and keeping parks healthy and all of that. And that's what I really want to do. That's what I really care about. Is state parks, national parks, that sort of stuff. Because I think that's really, really, really important for everybody's sanity to have some natural place to go to, whether it's kept up by man or not. It's important to be able to go to those places. And so, could I stay in the private sector and advise people and probably make a little bit more money? Yeah. But my ultimate career path is monitoring stuff for the government and parks and stuff like that.
That sounds like a cool place to like an environment to work in. Yesterday I went to basically Carson, Washington, which there's a fish hatchery there. And
Mhm.
driving by the fish hatchery, it's a national fish hatchery. You're like, how there are people that work there, like that's their job. And you think
Oh
about them,
yeah,
you're like, man, that's got to be like such a cool thing to do. If you're like in that kind of if you're that kind of person, like that has got to be like a dream job, I would think.
oh
And I
yeah,
never thought about like those kind of jobs until yesterday. I was like, oh, like someone does that. That's really good for them. I'm sure they're really happy actually.
yeah. No, it's something I had thought I had I'd been exposed to it in high school. I did a little bit of habitat assessment, water habitat assessment for the Bureau of Land Management, kind of an extension that they have, or a little what is called the Well Project, and that's specifically for high schoolers to get hands-on experience with data collection. Whether or not they actually use the data, I have no idea. They said they did. I don't know how much you can trust the data collected by a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds. But hey, that was my first exposure to it. And I thought it was pretty cool. But I kind of pushed it aside because I was always told that you're supposed to be like an engineer, right?
Mm.
Everyone's had that spiel given to them. Um, but then I eventually came back around to it.
I actually didn't have the spiel. I kind of wish someone had given me that spiel. What is the spiel of what you should do with your life? What do you feel like you were told you should do when you graduated high school?
You got to go to college and get a high paying job. You got to get a high paying white collar job. That's kind of the general. I mean, that's a really brief
Mm.
version of it, but that's basically it. And for me, that meant engineering. That's what I thought.
Mm.
Still think I have a bit of an engineer mind, not like stellar, but I see processes and stuff like that, and I really really love it when things are really well optimized, which is kind of the central part of engineering is optimization. And so I'm like really particular about that. But the math is killer. I I struggled with pre-calculus until this last year. So Calc 3 and whatever other stuff that engineers have to do, I was not going to work. Um, but yeah, the spiel was college, high paying job, probably something like engineering, or military was the other one, and that's one I almost did. But I didn't get into the Naval Academy, which was my plan. Um,
Hmm. Interesting.
but that was
See,
still going to be an engineering route, just a different path to get there.
I have a lot to say. First of all, I've got three guys that are not blood brothers of mine that I call my brothers. Two of them are engineers, and they are so I'm around engineers a lot, and they are a very specific type of person. It's like hilarious how you're like, oh, engineers are they you know them when you see them, and
Oh
you're like
yeah,
that guy's an
oh yeah,
engineer, right? It's so
yeah.
funny. And then I mean, you said the Naval Academy. So that's
Mhm.
a I flirted with joining the Air Force at one point. I saw it as a path to maybe like the cheapest way for me to get a degree, basically. Um, what's the story? What was your thought process there? Would that have been, I guess, Annapolis? Is that where the Naval Academy
Yes,
is? Correct.
Annapolis.
Yeah.
Yes, Annapolis, Maryland. Um, the process there was both of my grandfathers were in the army. My great grandfathers all served as active duty soldiers. Um, I think one of my uncles was in the Marines. He was almost deployed to Desert Storm 1. Thank
Mm.
God he didn't. We pulled out right before he was supposed to deploy. Um, so a bunch of my family has been in the military. And
Yeah.
I've always thought the Navy was really cool, which is ironic because I fucking hate the ocean and water in general. And I thought I was going to join the Navy. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm very glad I didn't get in. I would still be probably stuck in a submarine right now for another year, because you're required 5 years of service
Hmm.
after you're done. So I'd only be on year 3. Um, Never would have met my wife. I wouldn't be here. I may never have found your show, honestly, because I would have been so deep into the military,
Yeah.
and yeah, life would have been a lot different. But yeah, it was just because a bunch of people in my family had served, and I didn't want to be enlisted because that's hell. I wanted to be an
Yeah.
officer, um, but it didn't work. No, I
I
don't know why they didn't ever tell me. I just didn't get accepted. I think I have an idea, but I don't know.
So they don't tell you why you didn't make it. I didn't know
No,
that.
no.
Interesting. I know that world pretty well because I lived in Hawaii, so I also did a lot of jobs on Pearl Harbor space as a plumber. But I went like when I got hired. By the way, part of the reason I got hired as a plumber was because I didn't have a criminal background. They're like, oh, we have a guy who can go on the Air Force base and the military base to go do jobs like that. I did like the water heater for the FAA building, stuff like that.
Mm,
But I went on a I don't know if a lot of dates, but a considerable amount of dates with a naval officer, and she was really cool and told me a lot about Annapolis. And man, what a I would not want to do that at all. Like the things I've heard about, like being a naval officer, is especially the Navy, particularly more than like
hmm
the Air Force sounded fun, but the Navy's like, oh man, I don't know. Especially if you don't like the water, like oh boy, I can't
I
even
don't.
imagine
Yeah,
that.
I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know
What
what
would
I
you have
was
done?
thinking.
What was your thought? Like,
Suck it up, Buttercup. Like that was that was my whole reasoning behind it. Was, well, I'm gonna have to get used to it.
yeah,
Um, but I guess that's what I would have done about my hatred of water. Was that more of like what I would have done in the Navy? Is
yeah.
that
Like,
what you were
what role were
asking?
you in? Because I know you don't get to choose necessarily, but what would you have
Yeah.
wanted to do?
So the nice part about going through the officer programs is you get to choose your degree still, and your
Mm,
degree influences where they deploy you, and
mm,
what ship they deploy you on, and like a whole bunch of other stuff. So I was still going to do engineering. I don't remember what exactly I was going to do. Um, I don't. I think I was undecided.
Hmm.
But essentially, the most likely place it would have landed me was on an aircraft carrier, because those are the
Yeah.
biggest ones. Most people end up on aircraft carriers because, I mean, those are floating cities. Multiple thousands of people are on those things. Um, but I'd probably be on an aircraft carrier, either stationed in Hawaii or on the other side of the world. I have no idea.
So I've been on aircraft carrier. No, I've been on boats, not aircraft carriers, but I've met people who've been on aircraft carriers and heard lots of stories about them. They all say it's terrible, but I'm not gonna lie. I always thought it sounded cool and fun. Like I've always was like, I don't know, man. You're making it. They would describe the terrible parts in quotes, and I was like, I don't know. That doesn't sound that bad, actually.
I know.
What would you have thought of that?
So my recruiting officer, he kind of shared the same sentiment about aircraft carriers. He thought carriers sucked.
Mm.
Like he never enjoyed any of his time on a carrier. I personally would have thought it would have been cool for at least a couple of weeks, because, like, you're 20 years old. You're like, this is awesome. I'm on an aircraft carrier. There's $500 million airplanes around me. Like, I get to control people and tell them what to do. This is great. And then you realize the hallways are this big
Yeah.
and it's
Once the
loud,
novelty wears off,
and
it's
you're
like,
at
oh boy.
sea, and you're constantly rocking, and it's terrible. So my recruiting officer, ironically, he ended up on a nuclear submarine, and he liked that more than the giant aircraft carrier. Um, Again, I forgot the original question.
Well, here's really where I'm headed. Do you have peace about how it all worked out? Because you got rejected from Naval Academy. There's a soul's journey, and you've ended up where you are now.
Mhm.
Sales, little misadventure. You're in accounts payable. You're going to school. You're married. Like it actually sounds like you've got things kind of put together. Do you feel that way? Like you like the path
Yeah.
you're on?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It worked out. It again, like I said, if Plan A had worked, my original incarnation of Plan A, because there's been like 5 Plan A's. If the original Plan A had worked, I would still be in the Navy, God knows where in the world, commanding people essentially, and that would be my life, and I'd still be there for another 2 years. I wouldn't have gotten to watch the Ducks win some pretty big games. I probably wouldn't be a fan of the Chargers. I wouldn't have met my wife.
Hmm.
I would be completely disconnected from all my best friends. Like, it would not be good for me, for the kind of person I am. And I'm very content with the way that it ended up working out. It's everything happens for a reason, and I feel like even though I'm not where I thought I would be 8 years ago, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I'm really glad to hear that, by the way. Like that's actually a sentiment that I think people rarely have, which is a sense of peace about where they're at. We look so far ahead and we're always so focused on where we're going. And I do this thing where I think about all the alternate paths I've taken. Like I think about like, what if I chosen this at that inflection point instead? And like you can play the spider web game and look at all the alternate realities you could have had. And
Mm.
I always, for example, the other day I was doing tax documents and I had a flight booked for April 20th to 4/20, 2020 to go buy a house in Charleston, South Carolina. Like that's how
Oh wow.
different my life is now. Is like I'm in an apartment doing HVAC sales in Portland, Oregon. And at one point I was a YouTuber full time who was getting ready to buy a house in Charleston, South Carolina. And obviously that was about a month that was booked for a month after the pandemic ended up happening. So like the
Mm-hmm.
world completely changed, but it's weird to go back and be like, man, like 4 years ago, my life was totally different. It sounds like you got a
Oh
similar experience.
yeah.
Like things could have gone very different than they are now.
Oh yeah. 4 years ago, my wife and I had been just dating for a year, not even a year. We met in June of 2019. Um, and we were living with her parents because I moved out of my mom's place. We were looking for a place for us, and
Hmm.
we were living with her parents. We were just about to move out.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I had just recently discovered your stuff. Now, given that I'm an Oregon Ducks fan, I'll give you one guess as to how I stumbled across your content.
Ah, Fuck. It's the Herbert video. It's the goddamn
Yes.
video where I was
Yes, it is.
critiquing Justin
Yes, it
Herbert.
is.
It's
Yep, I
infamous.
was
I get shit
yep.
for it every day. Still to this day, people give me hate comments for it. I'm like, man, obviously I was wrong.
Yeah.
I'm glad. By the way, it's crazy. You watch that video and still follow me and still like that we're talking now. Like that's insane
Mhm.
because most people watch that video. They're like Herbert or they're Ducks fans and they go, fuck that guy forever. I hate him. Goodbye. I can't believe actually knowing that's how you found me that we're doing this right now. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was so, like I don't remember exactly what I thought at the time, but it was akin to, you've clearly never watched him play.
Mm.
You've only watched a couple hours of his tape. You didn't watch him for 4 years and watch him grow for 4 years.
Do you know that I watched him live in person a lot? Like I was on the sideline when Gardner
Well,
Minshew
yeah,
beat
yeah. See, I
him
didn't at the
like on
time.
College Game Day. Like
At the
no,
time, I
no,
didn't know that
but
because I don't
it's
think you had
funny.
made
Like
it. Yeah.
I still get riled up because I still feel justified in the opinion I had there, even though I was wrong. I'm like I
Well,
feel like it made logical sense when I look back. I'm like I mean I felt the way I did and I had reasons. It's
yeah.
hilarious. Like
So,
still years later, I'm like I get like fired up.
well, no. So I still get fired up the other way because I was ultimately right, but I was right because I was so stubborn and I
Mm,
didn't know football that well 4 years ago. I had played
mm.
when I was a little kid, but it had been years since I'd played, and I never really truly learned it because my coach was ass. Like he was. I'm not going to get into that. It wasn't a good time, and I left the game for a very long time because of it. Um, but then I came back around after I graduated because the quarterback, and this is really Herbert, is what really brought me back into it full circle because we'd gone through like Mariota, here we'd had Mariota, and everybody was huge fans of the Ducks when Mariota was here because we won everything and in style. And so after he left, I kind of took another dip, and then when Herbert showed up because he's a local kid, I started watching again and started really watching again. And then when he got drafted, I still didn't really know football that well. I knew how to watch it on TV, but I didn't really know it. Um, and then when I found your stuff, that's when my knowledge started to pick up, was because of your
Mm.
analysis. And that's really what made me get really back into it. And now looking back on all of that stuff, now that I know the game much better than I did, I would have thought the exact same stuff that you did
Well, can
about
I say I,
him.
I appreciate that you had an open mind enough to like keep watching because you didn't say fuck this guy forever and never. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
think that's very cool and I appreciate that. I also want to say like on a personal note, like my one of my best friends, Austin, I'm going to his wedding in Mexico this next weekend, and I'm really
Nice.
excited. And him and I do podcasts together. I love him. He's got Ducks season tickets. Like he loves the Ducks tremendously,
That
and
lucky bastard.
the Ducks are joining the Big Ten, and I'm really excited. So, and now I live in the Northwest again. I think I'm going to become kind of a pseudo Duck fan. Ironically enough, I love Dan Lanning. They got real big boy football coming to town. I got to hook up to go to games. I'm like, dude, I might be a Duck fan, and we might have to connect in Eugene and be like, I'll have to wear a dumb little Duck shirt and be like, yeah, I like the Ducks now. I guess I'm a fan. I guess.
Got the new version of the retro logo on.
It's just
Yeah, that'd
cool.
be cool.
It'd be fun to connect over like duck football. Actually, it would be like it's like a cool thing we can do in real life, which is like a hilarious, fun idea.
Yeah,
Especially given the history of how you found who I am and how like all that worked out. It's like that'd be such a fun
yeah,
like way to like close the loop of like whatever the heck this is.
yeah. That'd be cool. If I can manage to make it to a game, tickets this year are so expensive, man. They're so expensive. Single game tickets for Ohio State are like $300 for like row 70.
Yeah, I believe that.
It's bad.
Hey, worst case, I'll be in the area and we gotta get lunch or something. Like
Yeah,
worst case scenario.
there's a bunch of good sports bars around too.
How'd you meet your wife? What's that story?
The classic modern relationship, Tinder.
Swiped right. Yep. I
Yep,
knew it. I
swiped right.
fucking knew it.
That's it.
Do you remember your first date?
Yes. Yes, she was an hour and a half late because she had just gotten a new dog. Her and her parents had just gotten a new dog, and he decided to chew up every remote in the house.
Mm.
And so she was an hour and a half late, and she's not a very good texter sometimes. And so she didn't let me know. She let me know after about 45 minutes that she was going to be late, and I was like, great, I'll just sit here. And
Dang.
eventually
Did you
she
go to
showed up.
restaurant? Yeah.
So we went to this place called Lane 25. It's a little bar bowling alley that's attached to a family bowling alley. So I sat at a table in the family bowling alley, Strike City, and waited for an hour and a half. Didn't bowl. I don't know why I didn't bowl, but I didn't. Uh, and then we went and shot some pool, ate a little bit of food, and then I pulled the magic straw of I asked her what her favorite book was, and that
Hmm.
was it.
That's what got
And
her, huh?
yes, that's what got her. Until then, though, I was kind of apparently talking like this, like she couldn't really hear me, and I was being real quiet and just being real shy. And she almost said she's told me that she almost didn't want to continue the date because of that. Like I was just so quiet and hard to understand. Um, but then we got food, and then I asked her the question about the books, and then it's gone from there. And then we drove
I'm
around for a
surprised.
while.
I'm surprised this worked out. Like an hour and a half late is pretty insane. Like
Yeah,
sounds like there was like a not a great connection early on. Like, and yet you're married. That's
I
kind of
know,
unbelievable, actually.
I know.
How
Well,
does that happen?
so uh, it happens by doing a crazy thing and offering a girl you just met tickets to see Garth Brooks.
Dude, I remember the one he played in Autzen Stadium. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
my
Yep.
my friend? I've got a friend of mine, Emma, who works in local news here. She worked for the Eugene like local news station at the time. She like was covered that concert. I remember watching her like her Instagram videos about it. I remember that concert. So that was that your second date with your wife?
Uh, I think I remember it as being the second, but she says it's like the third or fourth because we'd had a couple others in
Mm,
between there. Not really like
sure.
real dates. But yeah, no, I met her on June 17th, 15th of 2019. And then the Garth Brooks concert was like July 8th. So, so yeah, we were driving around and I offered this girl that I just met tickets to a show, a big concert that was in 4 weeks. And I wasn't even 100% positive that we were going to like still be a thing in 4 weeks. But it worked
Hmm.
out. Thing is I ran out of cards to play real quickly because I used them all because Garth Brooks is both of our favorite artists. So um, I used I used all my cool date cards right away because nothing
So
else
you,
could top that.
I heard you say June 17th was the day you guys met, right? That was
It's
the
June
first
15th,
date,
June 17th, one of the two. She says
and
it
then you
was
got
the
married
15th.
June
I thought it was
18th.
the 17th. We got married June 18th. Yeah.
Is that why there's that correlation? That's that significance of it.
Uh, sort of. That's part of it. But there is another element to that. I don't know if you want to get into that question, which it is.
No, go ahead. By the way, I haven't been checking questions off the list. I just wanted you to
Okay.
have like an idea of like where we're going. I have no
Okay. Well,
direct like need.
okay. Well, that's a good. I mean, that segue works. So it's actually kind of like this answers like four different things on these prompts here. Um, particularly, it's the way that I'll phrase it is you asked, is there a moment in your life where there's everything before and everything after?
Hmm.
That is June 18th, 2013.
Interesting.
Um, that is the day that my grandpa died suddenly
Hmm.
at 59.
Wow.
No idea why. Never got an autopsy done, so we don't know why he died.
Hmm.
But he just didn't wake up, and there's definitely a break there where there is child me before that, and then a lot of growing up very quickly in the span of about 4 months over that summer because I just got through my freshman year of high school, and then he dies,
Hmm.
and it was like a double edged sword because my mom and dad got divorced when I was 6. And so he kind of became the father figure for that
Oh man.
entire preceding, what is that, 9 years? Yeah, 9 years. I was
Mm.
15. And yeah, so to lose that at 15 was was hard to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, but that was one of the events that actually got me back into sports.
Mm.
Because he used to take me to football practice on his Harley Davidson Road King, which, big Harley. It's like a big 1000cc cruising motorcycle. You feel like an absolute badass when you're 8 years old going to football practice on a motorcycle, by the way.
I bet. I can
um,
only imagine.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um, and so then I played. So he took me to practice for football, and then he took me to baseball practice for the one season that I played baseball, and then I stepped away from sports for a long time. And I kept telling myself, I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to get back into it because I want him to watch me play. I want him to watch me grow, get faster, stronger, better. And he died
Mm.
out of the blue.
Yeah.
And so after a couple of weeks of sitting on that, um, I was talking to another friend who she was a distance runner. She convinced me to try cross country. And I was like, huh, well, my grandpa was the fastest in his unit in the Army. He was a state champion level sprinter in his day. Maybe I can run. And so I got into running starting my sophomore year of high school. Um, and so that transition back into sports was only spurred on because of that. And from there, like, that taught me more about teamwork and drive and passion and desire and body management. Not really diet management, because you don't really give a shit about your diet when you're 16. Regardless
No.
of if you're an athlete or
No.
not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But like that event really kicked off this entire chain of events that's still going to this day.
Mm.
Um, I still come back around to that and like psychoanalyze myself
Mm.
about what's different. And while obviously people grow a lot in 11 years, it's more than just 11 years of growing.
Mm.
It was like taking on a part of him in me, because there's a lot of elements about him that I now reflect that I didn't before. And again, that could just be a consequence of growing and getting older, but
Yeah.
I like to think it's not. Um, because there was, part of the reason why I think it's more than just growing is there are things that I do and ways that I carry myself in certain situations that are him, not my mom, not my
Mm.
dad, him. To the point where the one race that I won in track, everybody in my family that was there, it was the JV districts 1500 meter. Um, set my personal best 4:45 on that race, or not
Mm.
4:45. That one was like a 5. No, yeah, it was a 4:45. Yeah, because I never ran faster than that. It was a 4:45, 1500 meter, so just under 5 minutes per mile.
Wow.
Um, it's like
Dang.
4:58, I think, is what that mile pace is.
Wow.
Um, for my kick at the end of that race, everybody who knew him said I looked exactly like him for that last 100 meters of that race. And to this day, like I said, there's things that I do physically that I'll see a picture of myself doing something and I'm like, that's my grandpa. That's not
Mm.
me. That's him. Um, but yeah, that event, it it shifted me as a person.
Do you mind if I paraphrase and kind of summarize what you said
Yeah,
and
go
make
ahead.
sure I'm getting it right? So for anyone listening, I sent uh, you a document of like, I don't how many questions, like 20. I wanted to like kind
20,
of get you
25.
prepared.
Yeah.
So I sent you
Yeah,
like
yeah,
20, 25 questions. And one of them is there a moment in your life where there's everything before and everything after? And it sounds like June 18, 2013, the death of your grandpa. early, he was 59, which is young. That's early and very unexpected.
Yeah.
Is a foundational, monumental moment in your life that changed everything and really changed. You lost your father figure. Is that an accurate portrayal of that
Mhm.
moment?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And do you know? I think you know my story a little bit. February 2016 was when
Mhm.
my little brother died.
Yeah.
And we have, I think, really interesting common ground that I didn't know we had at all. The loss of someone that is deeply meaningful to you and really close to you. And I totally know how that can really, it really is exactly that. It's a moment that like there's nothing is the same after that moment. Everything changes and your whole
Mhm.
perspective on the world shifts and changes.
Yeah.
Does that sound like an accurate kind of paraphrase of what you said?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that really changed too is like until you experience something like that, particularly as a young person,
Hmm.
you don't know what finality is until
Mm.
that happens.
Yeah.
You don't have a concept of some things you don't get to do again. And I think that was
Yeah.
another thing that like really kind of sat in the back of my mind, and I didn't really connect with it until the last year or two. I think about mortality a lot now.
Oh yeah.
But
I would
yeah,
imagine.
as I've gotten older, I think about it more and more and more. Um, but yeah, that's that's one of the more sobering parts of it is just that
Hmm.
finality, and you don't get it until you've been exposed to it.
What do you miss about him? Like when you look back on your grandpa, what was his name?
Dan,
Dan. What do you miss about
yeah,
Grandpa Dan?
Daniel Paul Huff. um, this is something I don't think about very often because there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
lot.
I can, if you want, I could tell you
Um,
what I miss about my brother if that makes it easier to kind of prompt
no,
things.
I've got a few things. Um, Doing projects with him because he was kind of he's one of those classic self-made men, right? If you want to call it
That's
that.
cool. Sure. What does that mean to
He
you?
so he when my mom and uncle were kids, they literally played a game while they were driving down the road to spot the glint of soda cans on the side of the road so they could get 5 cents. He was in the army and then he became a pastor, um, and never really had money. Like they just never had money. He was
Hmm.
a janitor at a lumber mill and then started pulling green chain, working 65 hours a week and still not
Hmm.
making enough money.
Yeah.
And eventually one day, somehow, I don't know, I never got to talk to him about this. Whoa, excuse me. Um, he basically said enough. And I don't know what he did. I don't know what the sequence of events was, but eventually he opened up his own pool and spa construction and repair business, called Quality Pool and Spa, I believe it was. And from there, he made enough money to buy a house. They bought another one. They bought another one, and then another one. And then he married somebody who was in real estate. They bought
Hmm.
another one. And
Wow.
eventually he had, I think, like 8 or 10 rentals in the Eugene area. And then he bought his own acre, no, 3 acres out in middle of outside of town, West Eugene, and built his dream house. So that, and to this day, on the listing, if you go on Zillow and look it up, in the description, it's described as a, what is it? A custom built home with quality craftsmanship. And that means a lot to me because he built that with a crew of 4 people,
Wow.
but he built it.
That's his house he built.
It is
That's
his
crazy.
house.
I've always
Yeah.
wanted to
So
build my own
that's
house.
that's self-made man to me.
Yeah.
It's a pretty high bar. It's a pretty high bar. Um,
Hmm.
but that's kind of what I miss about that is just having that like powerful influence behind me and helping him with those projects and working with him and whoops, hit my desk, and doing all that stuff. But then also just the support that he gave me
Yeah.
to do the things that I want to do and support my crazy ideas and endeavors and all of that stuff.
What a badass dude. I mean, you said a thing pulling green chain, I think is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what does that mean? I Googled it and it's pulling lumber from a moving conveyor chain. It's part of like the lumber process basically.
Yeah.
So he went from a guy
Mm-hmm.
who had like no offense to lumber to whatever the word is there, the lumberjacks. Um that job would suck, like I would think,
Oh
working at a
yeah,
lumber
no,
yard.
it's absolute ass. It used to be it used to be way worse than it is these days. It's still not great, but it's incredibly unsafe.
Yeah.
And you're
It's
exposed to all
unsafe
kinds of
now, let
chemicals.
alone
Yeah,
in his day.
35 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah. No, it's. I mean, and it's called. I believe it's called green chain because it's the fresh lumber, so it's
Mm,
all heavy
yeah.
and it's green wood.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fresh.
Yeah, and so all of the blades are like super sharp, like ridiculous, like they're the sharpest blades in the mill because it's cutting the hardest wood to cut, and it is super easy to like get your arm caught in the saw that or a planer that's made to literally plane logs. Like it's a
Yeah.
horrid job, and he did
Yeah.
that for years.
Well, to go from that to married with multiple houses, your dream house, like he really did turn his entire life a different direction. I mean, that
Oh
really
yeah,
is such a like I wish he was alive so I could ask him about that. Let alone I can only imagine how you feel. Like that's a really cool story. That's really impressive. That's cool.
yeah, yeah, and that's I guess that would be what I to answer the original question. What I miss the most is what I didn't get to ask him
Mm.
because I was too young. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to ask because I was
Yeah.
too young.
How did losing him change? For me, like I losing my brother made me so much more aware of. You said the word finality. Like every time I talk to someone, I really think about, if things go wrong, this could be the last time I see them. I give them a hug when I see, when I say goodbye. Like I know this might be it. Or whenever I'm
Mhm.
talking to someone, I try to leave no stone unturned. Like if there's something I'm dying to ask, I try to just ask it now because I know shit happens. There's so many things I wish I could have talked to my brother about. How did confronting the finality and the way that things can change so quickly? How did that change your perspective on life, and how does that impact the way you go about things now?
This is this is a goofy answer, but I promise you it's entirely sincere.
Mm.
And I don't mean this in the stereotypical not good way to look at it. You only live once.
YOLO, baby.
Yeah,
Sorry.
YOLO.
No, sorry, I had to.
I was gonna not say. I wasn't gonna say it. I thought about it. I almost did. I almost said it. No, it's yeah. You only live once.
Mm.
So what the fuck are you doing sitting on your couch doing nothing?
Yeah.
And that actually, I'm going to use that to lead into a different one. Hey, look at that. I'm doing the transitions now. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Steer the show.
Which one was it? Which one was it? Which one was it? Oh, what I don't like about myself, what I'm doing to change it. Weight loss.
Mm.
Because that was kind of what I was doing is I was sitting on the couch, playing video games, drinking whiskey all the time, like more than is healthy, if you can call it any amount of it healthy. It was COVID, so like,
Yeah.
sure, there's an excuse built in there.
We all got fat as hell during COVID. Let's
Oh
be
yeah,
honest.
oh yeah, but yeah. Well, no, and then you quit. You quit throwing freight. 80-pound
Mm.
boxes of tile and flooring all day long, and you continue eating like you are. You're going to put on some weight.
Yeah.
So from the time that I stopped stalking to 14 months ago now, 15 months ago, when I started losing weight, I had put on 50 pounds.
Wow.
And I didn't notice it for a long time. And then I don't know what happened. I think I went to the doctor and my blood pressure was dangerously high. And they're like, dude, you got to do something about that.
Well, did clothes not change the way they fit? Like, I would think that's the first indication is like, oh, my
So
pants are suddenly really tight. Like,
I never noticed it.
mm,
But every time I went to buy new pants because I ripped the old ones because of the job I was doing, I had
mm,
to go up pant size.
yeah,
And then because of the way my torso is, I it takes a long time for me to change shirt sizes.
yeah.
Um, so I just never noticed. I literally never noticed.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so I went to the doctor and they're like, dude, you're overweight. There's heart disease history in your family and high blood pressure in your family, and you have high blood pressure. You need to do something about this. And I was like, oh shit, I guess I do need to do something about this. And so I got a diet tracking app and started working on it. And 14 months later, I have lost 48 pounds. So that's what I did about it.
Wow. So you identified a problem and said, I want to change this. You went after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This whole journey is the whole weight loss journey is harder than any race I ever ran. And that's including a half marathon in there. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Mm,
Um,
yeah. What
but
made it so hard?
what didn't make it hard is a better question.
Mm,
What didn't make it hard, the only thing that didn't make it hard is the desire to live longer and healthier
mm,
and have my
yeah.
energy back. Like that's the only thing that made it not hard. Other than that, it was nothing but hard.
Mm. What things tested you as you're losing? Like for me, like I got a sweet tooth, man. I really do. I had 4 cookies today, and I really like. I remember that I went back for 2 more at work, and I was because we have like there's always sweet treats in my office. It's fucking awful, and you're
Mm.
like you see the cookies, you're like, just 2 more, right? And it's really for me, it's really easy to like just have too many sweets. What were the things that really tested you or made that process difficult for you?
This fucking shit right here.
Alcohol?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
only drinking this because it felt like an occasion to drink it.
Yeah,
Um, it felt fitting for a conversation like this.
definitely.
No, this I got real into whiskey for a long time, and one that's expensive. That's an expensive habit because whiskey's not cheap,
Mm-mm.
especially good whiskey. It is not cheap.
The real
But
stuff.
that's yeah, not your Jack Daniels shit. Sorry to anyone who likes Jack Daniels, but it's not worth the money. Um, I have thoughts on whiskey. Um, that was really what made it difficult. Was drinking in particular,
Mm,
because you don't think that there's many calories in it, but there is, and it's not just calories like the way that your body metabolizes it. It it you break alcohol down in acetaldehyde, which is more toxic than alcohol, which damages your liver, which makes it harder to process other things. But then that acetaldehyde is broken down into simple sugars, like what we would like refined table sugar is basically just pure carbs that your body uses for energy. So if you don't use it,
mm,
it just gets stored. Alcohol does the same thing. It breaks down into that. And so your body just holds on to it. And because you're often, not doing anything productive when you're drinking, it doesn't really you don't use it. And so it just even if you're active and working out a lot, you still hold on to it. So that was probably what made it the most difficult. That and I really like ice cream. I really, really like ice cream,
What's your
and
flavor?
dairy in
What's the
general.
one
Oh man,
or a couple?
the most nostalgic one is a flavor called Tin Roof Sundae. I don't. Do you know what Tin Roof Sundae is?
No.
It is so simple. It's vanilla ice cream with fudge swirls and chocolate covered almond pieces or peanuts or
Ooh.
chocolate covered peanuts. That's it.
Huh. I'm
It
looking
is
at it right
so
now. It
good.
looks good. It looks good.
It is
I
so
get it.
good. It's
I'm
so
a
good.
cookie dough man myself, but this
Yeah,
does look good.
yeah. So that's cookie dough is probably like for the traditional flavors. Cookie dough is probably my favorite. Though it's hard to beat a really good strawberry ice cream.
Mm, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I love fruity ice creams. Um, but yeah, no, that the sweet tooth made it hard. Um,
Yeah.
but then I just love food, and that was
Mm,
the hardest part for me to deal with. Is I just love food, um, and learning to control my impulses took a long
mm,
time
mm.
because I didn't realize it until I started looking at it. I had gotten to the point where I was eating because there was food. There was food. It looked good, so I ate it. And that is a very quick way to eat extra calories. And it takes a concerted effort to break that. Like I did this thing where I took a peanut butter cup, which is my favorite candy in the world. These peanut butter cups. Well, not my favorite, top 5 though. And I left it on my desk at work, right in front of my face, every day for 2 weeks. And I
Mm.
looked at it every couple of minutes, every day for 2 weeks. And I wasn't allowed to have that piece of candy until the 2 weeks was up. And when it was up, I didn't want the candy anymore.
Interesting.
I didn't want it.
Hmm.
So I didn't eat it. I took it home.
Yeah.
I think I ate it when I got home, but I didn't eat it right then and there.
Yeah.
Was the point.
It was like
Um,
this thing that taunted you for 2 weeks. And
yeah,
did saying no to it get easier as the days went on?
hmm definitely,
Huh.
definitely. It was really, really hard the first couple of days. But it's funny how something so little, like a little piece of sugar, is so hard to say no to.
Oh yeah. You know the Reese's eggs, like the little
I love
the
those.
Easter ones?
The
Bro,
Reese's
those are
shapes are
like
so much better. Reese's
the
shapes are so
fucking
much
that's the
better.
best one. It's amazing. Like that's my if there's one candy that fucking gets me, it's the little Reese's eggs at Easter. I'm like,
hmm
"Oh, bro, I got it. I got to do it."
You
But
can eat
you
like
so
5 of them just in
oh,
handfuls. Yeah.
dude, I don't know. I don't want to know how many calories that is, but I've definitely eaten like an entire Walmart size like 10 pack of those. Like just it's ungodly. Like Halloween and Easter are like the worst times of year for Zach. But so how'd you get that idea to put it on your desk and just not do it for 2 weeks? Does that come from anywhere? Was that your idea?
Yeah. So the app I used for weight loss was called Noom. You've probably seen advertisements around
Mm-hmm.
recently. They've been pushing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, it was Noom because their whole structure is they're not going to teach you how to lose weight. They're going to teach you how to control your mind
Oh.
so that you can lose weight.
Huh.
Their their whole big thing is we're psychologists, not diet scientists, right? So they basically just throw shit at the wall until it sticks. So it's just lesson after lesson after lesson of all these random, not random. There is method to the madness, but it feels like random topics of little mind games and mind tricks you can play with yourself and all these different coping, not really coping mechanisms, but just all of these things that you can try to
Mm,
see what works. And one of them is exposure therapy,
mm,
exposing yourself to that thing you really want and just finding the willpower to say no for an extended period of time.
mm.
And then when that time period is up, do what you want.
Do you think that discipline, because that takes a lot of discipline to say no to that thing right in front of you for 2 weeks. Did that translate to other aspects of your life? Did that discipline kind of follow you to other places?
I wish I could say it did, at least at the time, but it really didn't until recently.
Mm,
When I started going back to school, is when
mm,
I kind of had to really pull on that, because now I don't have time to do all of the fun things that I want. I have to be really strategic,
yeah.
and so I've gotten a lot better about saying no.
Mm,
But immediately, no, it did not stick to the rest of my life. I had to make it stick.
yeah. Is time management difficult with you right now? Like, given you're in school, you're working full time, you're married, is that a difficult thing you have to figure out?
The time management itself is not difficult, um, but the scheduling aspect of it is just
Mm,
making sure that I don't double schedule myself for things and keeping things open, but also juggling my schoolwork. Like the best thing that I did is I got a whiteboard right over there for my weekly schedule for school. So while I schedule myself to do things on certain days, I give myself flexibility to not do them so long as I get them done that week. And so far, I haven't missed anything. Um, but yeah, that all just comes from being disciplined, and that discipline that I learned through controlling my food impulses um, definitely plays a role with that, because that's the only reason I can stay on task and stay on time with my schoolwork
Mm.
is because of that discipline to say no and turn down the things I really want to do.
Did your wife play a role in motivation for all of that? Like, I know that for me personally, I'm pretty sure I met my wife. Like, we live together. It's really changed a little bit of my perspective. And one of my best friends, Austin, I've talked about him before, even on this podcast. Like, I'm going to his wedding this weekend. He's got a kid with his soon to be wife. And when he met his wife, it really changed his perspective. And then it changed again when he had a daughter. Like, I'm thinking for more than just me. Did getting married make you more or less motivated to make changes to make yourself better?
So here's the funny thing about the way that I see things changed when we got married
Yeah.
is things didn't change.
Hmm.
We just got a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Our relationship was already basically married at that point. It's just
Sure.
now our taxes are combined. Like that's
Which I hear is very nice, by the way.
it is. It is. It is. I'm gonna fuck it all up because I'm doing DoorDash on the side now to make a little extra money, but I'm gonna fuck up our taxes. um, no, nothing really changed. But she still was an integral part of all of this because, from my perspective, I want to. Should I have a son in the future? Because we do want to have kids. That's one of the questions
Yeah.
on here. Yes, we do want to have kids. Should one of them be a son or be interested in football in general? I guess it doesn't have to be a son. Um, I want to be able to throw the football with my kids. I
Hmm.
want to be able to play some form of football with my kids. Kind of hard to do that effectively if you're 300 pounds. No
Yeah.
offense to anyone who, you know, is that, or if you're a lineman and you're 300 pounds, you play football. You're living the dream, man.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to be able to do all of these athletic things that I like to do that you have to be pretty light to do. And I want to be able to do them with my kids.
Yeah.
I want to have the energy to go ride a bike for 3 hours with my future kids. I want to
Hmm.
have the energy to go on day long hikes with my future kids when they're in their teens. Like, I want to have the energy to do that. And having her in my life keeps that front and center. And so
Hmm.
if there's ever a lapse in motivation, it's always right there. Like, I'm not doing this just for my own health. I'm doing it for our future family.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I would actually go back to that original question. And say undoubtedly, like your perspective has changed with
Mm-hmm.
the thought of having a for me like I sit up a little straighter when I think about having kids. I get a little more serious. I realize like, I need to take my career more seriously. I need to be the best version of myself if I'm gonna have kids someday. And it really does kind of focus me. Um, and it sounds like the same thing for you, which is really cool, by the way. Like I think it's cool you're thinking about your future kids and wanting to be capable and be the best version of yourself for them, which is like really I think that's what being a dad is at its
Mm-hmm.
best form is like you want to be the best you can for your kids and help them through life. Well done, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and that's one of the few things that I like get actually emotional about too, is like thinking about my future kids and the fact
Mm,
that I can unconditionally love somebody that doesn't even exist yet.
yeah.
That's a weird feeling. That's a weird
It makes
feeling.
sense to me though. Like I'm in the same boat. Like I already know if and when I have kids, there's nothing I won't do to help them. Like I can't even imagine what it must be like to actually have kids. Like my friend Austin describes it as just this like life altering. Like when you hold your kid for the first time, it's a real thing. You're like, man, everything's about to change, and like suddenly the stuff you used to care about doesn't matter anymore because you're just this little thing's got to keep going. It's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting and beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
scared about
I'm
having
excited for
kids?
that.
Like like for me, I teeter back and forth on whether I want to do it or not, and it's been this long debate for myself. Do you have any nerves? Does it intimidate you at all being a dad?
Yes, but no.
Hmm. Describe that. Why?
Um,
How?
yes, because I don't want to do what my dad did and really mess up, to
Hmm.
be quite frank.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him about this. Like he knows my feelings on this. He knows all that.
Hmm.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be my mom, even though she's been the most present person in my life for my entire life. I don't want to go down her same path because there were definitely things that she did that I wouldn't do.
Hmm.
So I'm scared because I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I'm not scared because recently I've found this undying, almost not quite naive confidence that everything I do is going to work out. It may not work out exactly how I want it to. It may not look like how I want it to. But I mean, the Naval Academy didn't work. Plan A did not work. To 18-year-old me, I'm on plan like E, but I'm doing better than I would have been if I was in the Navy. So like, yeah, there's I'm scared because it's scary being responsible for a tiny human in every sense of being responsible for something. But I'm not scared because I'm confident that I'm not going to mess it up.
Yeah.
Even though, should I be scared about that? Probably, but I'm not. I'm just not. I'm just not.
I love what you said, and I don't think it's naive at all to have confidence in yourself and feel like it does all work out. It's weird how much in life we want to control everything. We want to have agency. And like you can control stuff. Like you could have decided to not go back to college. Like there are little ways you make decisions. We all have agency to some degree, but sometimes all you can control in your life is your attitude and the effort you put forth in whatever situation you're in. And it did all work out for you. Like, dude, my life's not at all where I thought it was going to be 4 years ago. Like it's, I don't know if you followed the journey. It's fucking crazy. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
weird,
no.
it's
I,
been
I
really difficult. It's like
yeah.
insane. And so my dad gave me a gift my whole life. He's always my dad was like horribly abused as a kid, and like I straight up for real. Like I've done podcasts with my dad, and he's talked about like how his like pets were like sacrificed to like the devil when he was a kid. Like he was like horribly, horribly abused.
God,
So
I
my dad
forgot
did
about those
better.
stories. I remember you talking about those on
Yeah,
old episodes of Zach Shomler talking. I
dude,
forgot about that. Good God.
it's horrific, right? So my dad had like the worst childhood ever. And my dad definitely did better than he got, but my dad left a lot of room for improvements to be made. And my dad always told me, like, do better than I did. He literally had the humility to always say to me, like, do a better job than I did. So that's always been my goal is if I have kids, I'll do better than my parents did. And both of us can definitely do better than our parents did for us, right? And then we
Hmm.
can tell our kids the same thing. Hey, look, I love you. I'm sure I made mistakes. Take the lessons I did and take the mistakes I made and do better than I did. And we just, if we all do that for generations, like think of how far humanity can go if everyone just makes an honest effort to do better than their parents did.
Hmm.
And like that's the stuff that fires me up. Like, man, what if like the whole planet did that? That'd be amazing. We really would like move so far ahead as a
Yeah.
species if we all did that.
Yeah. Well, like one thing, this is, I don't know if this is something that someone else has said at some point, and I'm just remembering it from years and years and years ago.
Mm.
But one of the things that's been rattling around in my head recently is complacency is the enemy of progress.
Mm.
If we were all just forever complacent about where we're at, what we're doing, you're never going to get anywhere. And
Yeah.
that can be extended to, well, if you don't try and improve on what the people before you did, then as a society, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It makes me actually think of this is a weird side tangent. I'm sorry. But like we're going back to the moon. Like America's trying to get back to the moon. NASA is, right? And you think of how much like technology got pushed forward by the space race back in the day. And I think the same thing can happen here. Like I'm all for pushing technology and pushing ahead. I know there's always this debate, like, why are we going to space when we have so much in our own backyard we got to fix? But I think you should do both. Like, you should be fixing water in Flint, Michigan. You should be getting, places in Mississippi running water. Like, let's take care of where we're at, but let's also simultaneously push farther ahead as a species, because I think that just is like what that's
Mhm.
how advancements are made. That's how you push ahead and make changes that are for the better. It's a weird side tangent, but like, I'm all for going back to the moon. I'm kind of excited. I
Oh
can't wait to
yeah.
follow it. Like, I love
Oh
that shit.
yeah.
It'll be awesome.
No, I always thought that going to the moon was just something that our grandparents were going to have gotten to experience. But no, no, we get to experience going to the moon too,
Yeah.
and in high definition color
Woo!
and live. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy
Yeah.
because they got to experience it through still photos and grainy black and white videos. We'll get to experience it in high definition in real time.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be wild. And in the
Um,
next 15 to 20 years, probably Mars too. Like, humans on Mars. Like, that's nuts.
would you go to Mars? I would think you wouldn't, knowing like you haven't even left
No,
Springfield much. Like,
no. I think you have answered a question similar to this on someone's right end. Someone asked you something about that a couple of years ago, probably, and you said if you something along the lines, if I remember correctly, if you could guarantee my safe return, absolutely. And like, I think you said that. I could be wrong. That may have been, someone else, but that's where I'm at. If you could guarantee my safe return, even if it was a year-long trip, yes, I would go. I
Mhm.
would go to Mars. The
I,
problem is right now with current tech, it's a one-way trip.
I gotta say, I've actually always said I would go to Mars one way. I've always told, like,
Oh,
which
really?
it's funny that's now no longer true. By the way, it's really weird. Like, I
Mhm.
really like where my life is at, and I would think similar to you. You're like, hey, my future's pretty good. I'm actually really excited. I got like a lady, and I'm like feeling really good about where I'm at, and I like my location. Um, but for the longest time, especially after my engagement ended a couple years ago, like, I was like, get me on a plane, dude. Get me on a one way like space shuttle to Mars. I'm gone forever. Like, I would have totally done that. And now I'm at a point where, in my life where I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that at all. I wouldn't trade what I have for anything. I really am enjoying like the place I'm at. Um, yeah. What do you make of? And this is I want to go. I want to talk about your dad at some point, but we can totally circle back. What do you make of like where does like AI is kind of the hot thing right now? But I also saw like Neuralink is like happening, and we're like the first guy has it now. Is
Mhm.
there any uncomfortability for you with where technology is and maybe will be going by the end of our lifetime?
Not in our lifetime, no.
Yeah.
Granted, that's from somebody whose knowledge of all of this is through the various science communicator YouTubers that I watch. Uh, I've not looked into any of this in depth myself. I'm not worried about it
Mm.
because go back and look at what people thought the world was going to look like in the year 2000 in 1924. It looks nothing like that. Go back into 1964 and look at what people thought what the world was going to look like in 2000.
Mm.
Go back to 1985 with Back to the Future and look at what they thought it was going to look like in 2015 or whatever the year is that they go to. Everybody was wrong. I understand Back to the Future is a bit of a creative
Yeah.
license. It's meant to be crazy and wild because it's a time travel movie, but everybody forever has been wrong.
Yeah.
And now
Can
we've
I
got
challenge
people.
you?
Yeah.
There was an article written. I think it's 1908. Whatever year the Wright brothers flew the first plane. Like 9 days before they flew the plane, there was an article that said it'd be 100 years until we're flying, right? And then 9 days later, it's like the most wrong headline of all time. Like fucking
Uh
nine
huh.
days later, these
Uh
dudes
huh.
flew in an airplane, right?
Uh huh.
And the iPhone, I think of like what a cell phone was and how much has changed. Just in like I'm 27, you're 25, about to be 26. Like, we have watched phones come up and completely change everything in our lifetime. Social media change everything. So like my point is technology changes so quickly, right? And I think you and I are probably okay. Like, by the end of our lifetime, we're gonna miss all the horrific, maybe bad sci-fi shit. Maybe it's our kids that'll deal with that.
Hmm.
But I also wonder, like, what if it does go exponentially the same way like phone technology did? How like quickly that advanced,
Hmm.
and I don't know, man. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that because it seems totally unproductive. Like all I can do is go to like I gotta just fucking pay my rent, you know? Like I can't
Yeah.
think about like God damn, like I don't have energy to think about doomsday scenarios and stuff. But I was curious because I just wonder like are we doing the right thing? Like are humans capable of handling technology like where it seems to be headed? Like I don't know that we have the responsibility
Mhm.
to properly manage. But I don't know. I'm just some idiot guy, literally in
Yeah.
an apartment, like scared about stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm really not worried about it in our lifetime, and I don't think that this whole AI thing is. Sorry, hit my computer screen.
No, you're fine.
Uh, I don't really think it's going to be an issue in our lifetime. I don't think that AI is going to become some all powerful overlord, whatever the hell conspiracies that are out there. Right now, it's a creative tool.
Yeah.
That's it. It's powerful enough to, in snippets, create convincing dialogue and create convincing bits of papers. It's powerful enough to create really cool looking images,
Mm.
but it's flawed. You can always tell that it's AI generated. And this step was the biggest step that we've had in artificial intelligence in like 20 years, and it's still not good enough to truly fool most people. It's good enough to fool a lot of people, but I think there's probably a big overlap in that Venn diagram of the people that are coming up with these conspiracy theories too.
Yeah.
That like the people that are fooled by AI all the time, because I get fooled by it. I'm sure you get fooled by it too. Like sometimes it's convincing with a
Well, I
little bit
wonder
of,
about the times I've been fooled and haven't even known. That's what
you
interests
know.
me. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, I definitely look at everything kind of out of the side of my eye now. I will
hmm,
say that's one thing that has changed is definitely I'm more skeptical of
hmm.
certain things. Um, but no, I don't see it being an issue,
Well, I've
really.
got a hopeful thought because like it goes back to that thing. Like you can only control so much, and all the only two things I can guarantee I can control forever are my attitude and my effort. I have no agency over what happens with technology. And I was like, I just don't, I genuinely don't. I used to really get like, I was such a negative, like fearful person for a couple of years. I was really like really afraid of like everything. And I just accepted, like, I can't even give any energy to like my doomsday scenarios and my fears and my concerns about like where we're headed as a species. Cause it just doesn't, it's so unhelpful. I can't do anything about it. Um, and my fears now were like my biggest fear now is losing the people I love. Like that really, that's the one. Like, what if Molly, my girlfriend, dies? What if my best friend dies?
Mm.
What if my dad dies? Like those are the things that really scare me now. And I'm curious, like what are the things that scare you? Like what are the things that actually? Because again, AI doesn't move the needle for me. Not really. It's an interesting conversation, maybe at best. But like, what actually does scare you in your day to day life?
A lot of what you just said, the people close to me dying, particularly my wife, um, that thought terrifies me.
Hmm.
And it is one of the few things that if I'm already in a bad mindset, like the thought of her not being here is one of the few things that can actually push me close to crying. Um, because like I married her for a reason. It's because I want her to be here as long as I'm here, and
Yeah.
I want to be with her as long as she's here.
Hmm.
And so her suddenly not being here one day, because we're young enough, it would just be like that. It would be sudden.
Yeah.
Um, that terrifies me. Probably my mom also dying because she had me at 20, so she's still really young.
Hmm.
Um, so it would be a shock if
Yeah.
she died. Um, that being said, she has quite a few health issues that, under the right circumstances, it could happen. Um, and that's terrifying. Uh, that's really the only big picture things
Yeah.
that scare me, because like the thought of losing our house, not really an issue because we have stable jobs, and either way are there's gig work like DoorDash and stuff that you can do to make up money when you need to. Like there's ways to make money. So if you lose your job, you're not SOL. You have other means. There are other ways to do it. You just have to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Terrified of losing my cat? Yeah, because she's 2. That'd be sad.
Yeah.
The dog, he's also 2. That'd be sad. But like, there's not really any other existential things that terrify me, at least to my knowledge. There are some other little goofy things that terrify me in a more colloquial sense, like phone calls. I hate phone calls.
Really?
I fucking hate talking on the phone. And not just because it's like, oh, it's annoying, it's a phone call, I can't understand you. No, like it viscerally terrifies me uh, to talk to someone on a phone call. Specifically a phone call. This is fine.
Hmm.
I think that's partly because, like, given that I've watched your content for so long, and we've talked a little bit outside of it too. Like, there was a little bit of a connection before already. So, like,
Yeah.
you're not a total 100% stranger.
I want to tell people, by the way,
Um,
you sent me an email and I was like, I texted you back. I'm like, dude, text me. You
I
have my
know. I
number. I
realized
was like,
that.
what are you doing?
I
I
said that,
was
and I
like,
was I said that, and I was like, why the hell did I do that? That's so weird.
but it's like a Larry David moment. Like I do that all the time where I'm like, it's like the awkwardness of being a human. You're like,
Oh,
fuck.
okay. The awkwardness of being a human. Um, did you see? You probably didn't. The Chargers social media shared a video of one of them asking if Justin Herbert had talked to Joe Alt, like the day after he got drafted. And Joe Alt's like, yeah, he sent me a text. He said, hi, I'm Justin Herbert and I play quarterback. And that was the whole message.
Dude, he I'm not gonna say anything about that, but he's an Akko Taco. Like it's
Oh,
so
no, I know.
funny. Like I love him, but he's totally like I see so much of myself in him. I'm like, damn, that's something I would do. Fuck.
Oh, I know.
Like
Oh, and all of his one-liners are movie quotes, like just obscure movie quotes. Yeah, I know. I
yes.
know. He's a weird dude. Fun fact: he was born on the same day in the same hospital as my wife.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
Eugene, Oregon, baby.
Oh yeah, not that big of a place.
No. No, I
um,
know. By the way, I know a lot of people that know him personally. That's why it's really weird to like talk about him. Is like I
that's
know
fair.
people that like love him, like that are like, dude. Part of the hate of that video I made about him was like I had family members that are like, he comes to my house for barbecues. You're a fucking idiot. Like they were so mad at me because they know him as like a friend, and it was like
Mhm.
I was like, so it's years ago now. I was beginning my career like talking about sports, and it was like my first time like dealing with the real life consequences of like saying shit about someone. I was like,
Mhm.
fuck. And it
I
really
I
did like
get,
it changed how I talked about athletes, like for real. It was really like
yeah,
that was a moment for me that made me go like, I need to change a lot of stuff.
yeah. I get I get having a reaction like that, but at the same time, you were not critiquing him as a person. You were critiquing his football playing. Like that's different.
Yeah.
Um, and then a couple other things that, getting back to the what scares me thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this is ironic considering I love football games and sporting events in general. Large crowds terrify me
Dude, fucking
outside
same.
of sports,
Uh,
and concerts. Like I love playing music to large crowds. I love it.
mm,
And I love sports. I love being in the crowd. I love being one of just 60,000 people that are there for the same reason. Love it. I feed off of that. It's the one thing, the one large crowd scenario that I actually feed off of. Otherwise,
damn.
going to the mall for an hour makes me so tired that I want to sleep. And then hornets and wasps. I hate those things. They don't need to exist. They're nothing but vessels of pain, and they can just all die. I hate them.
Dude, I'm with you on crowds. Like I actually would rather I've done stand-up comedy. Like I would rather be the guy on the stage with a microphone than being in the crowd. Like something about being shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of other people like freaks me out. I get really like, or like in football stadiums or concerts, like at a game or at a concert, I'm like, what do I do with my hands? What do I like? I went to a concert, Hippie Sabotage, a couple weeks ago, and I'd never been to like an EDM show before, and I'm like, I literally don't know what to do with these hands, these awkward
Yeah.
hands. Like I'm like, I don't. My girlfriend isn't here. I can't touch anything. I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Do I hold him up? That feels wrong. Do I put him down? That also feels
Hmm.
weird. Like where do these hands go? Like I hate that shit. Like I'm
Yeah.
such an
No, I
introvert
hate
and no
it.
one believes me. It's like, oh man.
I
So
hate it.
I
Yeah. No.
totally relate.
The only time I know what to do is at a football game. Like I can get overstimulated by sound. If it's
Mm.
too much going on at once, too many side conversations, stuff like that. But like at a football game, nah, crank that up to 130 decibels, blow my eardrums out. Like, let's be ridiculously loud, be annoying and obnoxious. It,
Mm.
but outside of that, no, shut up. Be quiet.
Can I ask a really a dark question? Like a really like kind of fucked up question.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever thought about what you would do if your wife dies? Have you? Is there any like? Do you have any like? Because what I think what happens in that scenario is this unexpected loss happens. No one's prepared for it, and someone's life gets totally thrown out of whack and like and ruined. Frankly, have you ever thought about that? Like what you would do, or like any? I know it's fucking dark, but I'm
Mhm.
curious. I know it's awful.
I, I wish I had a true answer for that question. Yes, I've thought about it. Not a fucking clue what I would do.
Hmm.
I don't know. It is so. It, it, it's a real possibility. Like it's always a real possibility, as with anything. But it is such an existential threat in my mind that I can't fathom it happening.
Hmm.
And so I can't fathom coming up with a plan
Yeah.
or anything. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's
That
really
makes
that
sense.
simple.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I've thought about it, but I have no idea.
What happened with your dad? Like what? Because you said your grandpa is your father figure.
Mhm.
So something. So your dad wasn't around to some degree. Like what? What's the story there? What happened?
The bottom line is it's a classic story of my dad cheated on my mom multiple times. And that was that. Um, Beyond that, I'm not super like knowledge on what the whole surrounding situation was. They did a really good job of keeping that away from my sister and I because, like I said, I was 6, she was 4.
Hmm.
So we were really, really young. So I, to this day, I know more about the situation, but not a ton. And I don't really care to know more. I don't need to know more. You know, I know what he did, and I don't even think that he's given me his side of the story because there's not his side to the story. Like this is a one-sided deal. He fucked up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's that simple. Um, and then from there, he kind of, from the perspective of me and my sister, he tried to be in our lives, but from the perspective of my mom, he never tried, and instead tried to keep us from my mom.
Hmm.
And I was too young. We were too young to see it.
Yeah.
But now looking back on it, it's like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. I won't go into super detail about that because having learned more, it's like, yeah, that's pretty fucking rough. Like, why would you do
Yeah.
that ever? Not like any of it. Oh shit! Sorry, I kicked my. Hold on a second. Okay, there. Apparently, my cable is going bad.
Oh,
My XLR cable is going bad. Apparently, um,
sick. Fun.
yeah, I have another one, but like I would like to have two.
For the
Um,
record, your audio's been uninterrupted the entire time.
okay, so then it's just on my end then. There was a really loud static noise for the last like 20 minutes, and I just now figured out what it was. Anyway, that's much better. Where was I?
You're talking
It
about
was
your dad.
yeah.
Well, I'm curious. Was he involved in your life, or did he take a back seat and step away?
He tried to be.
Yeah, yeah.
He tried to be, but he wouldn't go to my football games except a couple. He wouldn't go to my sister's soccer
Mm.
games. He didn't go to my baseball games. Then he moved to Ketchikan. So was he physically there? Yeah. Was he there in any other capacity? No. Not at all.
When
Until the
moving to
last
Ketchikan,
5 years.
Alaska,
No.
Ketchikan, Alaska, you're also not even physically there, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
And that was for a good 4 years or
yeah.
3 years or something like that. Um, yeah, no, that was hard. And then when we went to see him, that was kind of nice. Um, it was kind of that
Mm.
was a cool trip. There were some pretty fun things we did. Um, but there's not a lot to do in Ketchikan, Alaska. In case you didn't know, especially if you are 11 years old, there's not a lot to do up there. It's not even on mainland Alaska. It's on one of the islands. It's in the
Yeah.
lower archipelago. So like, there's nothing to do.
Why did he move to Alaska? That's an interesting. Like my brother lives there, but it's hard to
Yeah.
get there. That's a choice, you know.
He was chasing a job that he promptly lost 6 months later.
Hmm.
Yeah, he got a job driving a log truck and then proceeded to get the log truck stuck multiple times, and they don't like that.
Was your I guess I assumed your grandpa was on your mom's side. Is that
Yes,
an accurate assumption? Okay. Yeah.
yes. I guess yeah, I should have specified that,
Oh
but
no,
yeah.
no. It seemed very clear, but I then I'm like, wait, they're both in logging. What's that happen? So anyway, what's your relationship like with your dad now today? Is it good? Do you keep in contact? Is there some awkwardness? Like,
There's no awkwardness. Would I call it good? I don't think so. I would call it better.
yeah,
I would say it's definitely better, and I'm glad I did it now instead of doing what my uncle did with my grandpa, my mom's side. My mom's brother waited 20 years to repair his relationship with his dad, my grandpa, and then he
yeah,
fucking died. So I'm glad I'm doing this now. And that's why I started doing this now,
yeah,
because I saw that happen. And I was like, well, that fucking sucks. So I didn't want that. So it's better. We don't talk about much outside of football. So right now,
mm,
it's a little quiet on the Western Front, if you will.
yeah,
But during football season, we're constantly talking and like breaking down the games and, you know, sending each other crazy reactions to all these plays. I try and catch a game with him at least once a year.
mm.
Um, so it's healthy in that regard. Like we do spend a little bit of time together and we do talk. And he calls me to check in every once in a while. Um,
But football is a big
but
connection point. That's
football
like
is
what
the
brings you
connection point.
together.
Yeah. That's the one thing we have. So I really lean into that. And now my sister is getting into football. I don't know if you remember my
I
ride in a
do
couple
remember that
weeks ago.
right in. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
she is eating that shit up. She loves it. Um, yeah, I've gotten super nerdy with the whiteboard and like we're just scratching the surface, but she is all over it. She's asking questions about things that I haven't gotten to yet, and she's right.
That's cool.
Like she's asking valid questions, and I'm like, I haven't told you about that yet, but yes.
Yeah, I remember you wrote
um,
in on Patreon about your sister. I think it was during the playoffs. Probably was getting really into football. Am I right?
um, no, it was during the regular. It was during the. So she originally started getting into it during the college regular season, but it was towards
Mm,
the tail end of the college season. It was like early November, I believe. Is when I did that ride in.
yeah. Um, I'm curious. You said your mom was 20 when she had you.
Yeah,
Was your dad also 20? Were they the same
he
age?
was 22.
22. So they were kids, really. Like they were both
Yeah,
really young, in
I'm
my
older than
opinion.
they were now. I'm
Yeah.
older now than they were then.
Does that frame any so for context? My parents had the worst marriage ever. It was not good. There was a lot of mistakes made on both sides, and I had to, as an adult, like really build a totally new relationship with my mom, like a completely different one than I had when we were a kid. And now, as a 27-year-old, I've got a really healthy, good relationship with my mom. But when I was a kid, I fucking hated her. Like we did not get along. When I moved out, like there was a lot of bitterness, and then years went by, and then I went back and was like, hey, let's. And especially as I grew up, like my view of what happened started to change as I looked at things a little differently with more perspective. Is there any bit of like, hey, they were idiot kids, and I don't want to excuse your dad at all, but is there any of that like, is there any like maybe forgiveness or maybe any part of like that anything you've learned about your dad since then, like, huh, like I don't know what I'm saying here, but like I just remember as I grew up, my view of my mom really changed as I
Hmm.
grew up. Has that happened at all for you?
Oh yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yes, definitely. Especially once I realized that when my dad was my age, he had a 3-year-old kid,
Yeah.
and I don't. And to me, that's a major step ahead, personally for
Mm.
me, because our paths in life are very different, and I know that, and but because of where I'm at, like I'm definitely a step ahead of them. Um,
Yeah.
but because of that, I've been able to look back and yeah, definitely find a little bit of solace, I guess would be the word. Um, knowing that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just doing what I think is going to work. So far, almost
Yeah.
everything I've tried has ultimately worked out. Not how I thought it was going to, but it's worked out. I don't know what I would do if I had a kid. And I get that.
Yeah.
Like having experienced life and working life and being an adult, I get it. It doesn't excuse it,
No.
but I
I want to be very
understand.
clear. I was not trying to
Yeah.
excuse bad
And yeah, yeah,
behavior.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, but
No, I know.
I look back at my parents like, man, like they were idiot kids, you know, like, it's like, man, I try to be as forgiving as I can be within an acceptable, reasonable boundary. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, I try to give my benefit of the doubt, like, and put myself in their shoes and go, like, yeah, like, I wouldn't have done good in my parents' situation either. Is how I feel, and I'm like, I guess, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that's kind of how that's definitely kind of how I look at it is yeah, definitely. I understand why you struggled.
yeah.
I'll put it that way.
But I'm excited, man. Like, I think you are gonna have kids someday, probably.
Oh yeah.
And I know you'll do better, and I think we'll be in touch. I think we'll talk again someday, and I'll be like, how's blah 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 doing? And you'll be like, tell me about your kids, and it'll be like, dude, good job. I could see that happening down the road someday. I think that's a
Oh
cool
yeah,
conversation we get to
definitely.
have. Like that's
Definitely.
awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be a few years. It's going to be quite a few years before we have a kid. Not like a crazy amount of time, but
Yeah,
you know, we've decided that because we've been told there's never a right time, so you should just have kids. Well, mom, that's why you had a kid at 20. Uh, there's never going to be a right time, and I know that, but there's going to be a better time.
yeah.
And now is not that time. Hopefully,
What are
it's in the
your
next 5 years or so. But
For me, finances are the one that weighs the most on me, and
mhm.
like I just want to make sure like I can give my kids a really stable financial situation to come into.
Yep,
What
that's
are
it.
the is that yeah is that the reservation for you?
That's 90% of it. The other
Yeah,
10% is I want to have my career at least in reach,
yeah,
because I have to get a master's degree to do what I want to do. So I want
yeah,
to at least get my have my bachelor's done.
yeah.
So
That
I
makes
want to
sense.
have that ultimate goal in reach, so that when I get that is just when they're getting old enough to start remembering things really. And I want to, because I want to be there for them, of course, all the time.
Yeah,
But at that critical point where they really begin to be shaped, I want to be able to be present for them.
yeah,
And if I have a kid now, I will be nose deep in books and working constantly, trying to get a master's degree by the time they hit that point.
yeah. Totally. Do you own your house? Is that
No,
no? Okay,
no,
yeah. So,
I so wish. I so wish. No, this is a duplex. Part of the reason I'm not talking super crazy loud too is that that's the shared wall,
mm,
um, with the little kids' room, and it's
yeah,
you know 9:45, so I'm trying to be a little quiet. But
So for
um,
anyone watching or anyone listening not watching, behind you is like I see one, two, three, four, maybe five guitars, six, okay, six, seven, eight guitars. Is that accurate? There's a lot of guitars happening
there's
behind you.
six. There's
There's
six.
six.
A couple of those are my sisters. I'm just holding on to them for now. But I own two, three, four, five. The irony is I own six guitars. And there happens to be six behind me, but they're not all mine.
I guess there's no question. I'm just tell me about them because that's a choice, man.
Yeah.
You clearly like there's a hobby behind you that is very visible. So tell me
Yeah. Do
about
you
it.
want me? Do you want me to just grab one real quick, or to just
Sure.
like show it, or okay?
No, you don't need to.
So,
I think we all know what a guitar looks like.
well,
I don't
yeah,
know. Like
I will. I will show one. I'll show one
if you
here.
want to do it, go for it.
Is this
I
one?
got no reservations.
This one's special for me. So
Hell yeah.
this one.
Oh my god. What is that?
So it is a really it's called a dobro. I call it a resonator
Dobro.
because that yeah, Dobro. Um, I call it a resonator because that's what it does. They were originally designed in the 1920s to be able to project acoustic guitars better um, over amplified orchestras because that's when audio amplification started to show up, and so you could no longer hear the acoustic guitar. And so they designed these guitars with this steel resonator in them to project the sound better so you could hear them at the back of the auditorium. And then they got picked up by blues musicians. And now, in combination with a slide, it is the blues sound. And this is special because this is the first guitar that I ever bought with my first ever tax returns.
Dude, that's sick. I'm glad you picked it up. That I would have never. Is it actually? Does it work? Is it actually louder? Like,
Oh,
does it
yeah.
do?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And it has a different sound too. It's a more metallic sound. Um, which makes sense because it has a steel drum in it. Not a steel drum, but a steel resonator drum. It's a cool guitar. It sounds really cool. There's nothing else in this house that sounds like it. And then the one next to it is my sister's classical that I'm holding on to. The one next to it is her Gretsch, a solid body electric guitar. Next to that, the white one, that is my Stratocaster that my uncle gave me when he wanted me to get some experience playing live music, so he bought me that guitar and said, "You're playing in my band now." And so I did. That was a lot of fun. That was a real fun time. And then next to it is an Epiphone Sheraton for anybody who knows what these guitars are. And that's a made in Mexico Strat. That is an Epiphone Sheraton. Um, I bought that with my first Rona stimulus check.
That's awesome, dude. I've got a
So that's
guitar
that.
off
And then
camera.
that guitar over there is actually technically my father-in-law's, but he can't play because he has arthritis. And so he gave it to my wife when she was still in high school, and then she never picked it up. And so now I have it. And then I have one more in the living room. That's an old Yamaha that I was given. That's the couch guitar.
Do you play often?
I do now. I didn't for a while because of school, but now a flag football friend of mine has started up a band project. And so I am now getting back into playing. So I'm going to be playing lead guitar in that project. So now, yes, I do play often, but for a long time I didn't because music took a back seat. We had our first rehearsal yesterday, and oh my God, it feels so good to be back.
Dude, that's so cool. That's I play guitar about 3 4 days a week, and I've never talked about that. It's a thing. I play Noah Kahn songs, so that's like the guy that I like play and sing. I sit right here. My guitar's like over there on the back of the
Nice.
wall. Like I
Mhm.
I don't know. That's really cool. How long have you played? How many years?
Um, So funny thing about that question, I don't like the question of how long have you played. I actually think that the first one, do you play often, is a better question,
Interesting. Okay.
because practice frequency is a more important metric when it comes to if you're trying to. Because let's be real, most people ask. Not saying you are, but most people ask that question to gauge your skill,
Yeah.
because they're curious. Um, it is more important to know how often you practice to know how dedicated you are, as opposed to how long have you been able to play.
If you want to
I
gauge
have been able
skill.
to, yeah, I have been able to play chords since I was 12.
Really?
I have been able to play lead lines effectively for 3.5 years, 4 years. I've considered myself a lead guitarist for about 2 years. That being said, I haven't practiced much in the last year, so I'm real rusty.
Do you
Um,
remember buying your first guitar? Like, because I didn't get one till I
yeah.
was 22. Like, I was way older, like way late in life.
Oh shit! I missed a guitar. So I know this is inverted because I'm looking at the thing. That's the Sheraton. Next to it is a hard one. That's kind of hard to see because it's also black. That was my first ever guitar. I still have it. It came in a kit with a little solid state 10, 15 watt practice amp. Um, and it sounded like ass. But I put it away for a long time because I thought the pickups broke. The what actually happened is that the pickup bracket broke. And so the screws weren't actually holding the pickup in place anymore. So I kicked it aside for a long time, and it sat in its gig bag in the closet for about 6 years. And then I picked it up again a couple of years ago, during the Rona, actually, because that's when a lot of us rediscovered hobbies.
Yeah.
And I picked it up and I was like, this thing feels pretty good. It's actually a pretty nice guitar for a $500 kit guitar. I'm going to buy new pickups. And so I bought new pickups, swapped out the pickups, and it sounds awesome and it plays amazingly. It's a great guitar. It doesn't really fit the style that I play much, but it's still a great guitar to have.
What's your style?
Um,
How do you consider that?
so my background is kind of country blues Americana. Um, if you want to go really into the weeds of where that comes from, think like Richie Valens and Buddy Holly. But if you want to know like my influences, think Garth Brooks, Johnny Cash, Eric Church, um, little bit of like Avenged Sevenfold and some of the stuff, like little flares of some of the and some of the lead lines. Think like
Mm.
Avenged Sevenfold, Metallica, stuff like that. Bon Jovi. But it's definitely now it's in the squarely in the rock vein, which kind of a cliche for a guitarist.
Are you
But hey,
capable
it's
of
what I
playing
play.
like cool like electric solo? Like, could you pull that off?
Oh yeah,
That's sick. Is that
yeah,
fun? I feel like
it
that's like
is
hitting a
so
home
fun.
run. It's like an experience I'll never have in my life, but I bet it's amazing.
99% of what you play is a swing and a miss, but that 1% is a grand slam. It's just when you hit something, when you play something, it just connects. Oh, it's so good. And then when you're playing something live that you've rehearsed over and over and over, and you're super nervous, like you're getting up to the solo section and your heart starts racing faster, and then you play it and you nail every note, whether or not the crowd cares, that is the greatest feeling.
Yeah. So you've played shows, like
Oh yeah,
you've been in front of
yeah,
a crowd.
hmm yeah. Bigger the
When's the last
better.
time you did that?
Before I got married, November of 22. No,
Are you guys
21.
gonna do that with the band? Like go back out and
Oh yeah,
do shows?
yeah.
Dude, that's all. Hey, I'll come to Eugene for a fucking show. That sounds like a fun adventure.
Yeah, our we're probably going to start with college house shows because that's where you got to start around here,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and then we'll move up to bars. But our goal, and this literally is the goal of the band, is to play the Wow Hall in downtown Eugene. That's our
Hell
goal.
yeah.
That's if we do that, we've made it. Everything else is a bonus.
Dude, if you ever play a bar show, I'll come. I literally will drive the 2 hours, whatever it is, bring my girlfriend, have a good time. Like that sounds
Oh yeah, all
like a
right.
fun
I'll let you
adventure for
know.
real.
I'll let
Hell
you know.
yeah.
It's high energy indie rock, so
Hi. Okay.
it'll make a good show when we get everything together. It'll make a good show.
That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah. Um, I know it's 10 o'clock. We both work tomorrow. Is there really? I want to make sure I'm not leaving any stone unturned. Is there anything you want to talk about that you feel
Hmm.
like? Is there any topics? Anything you want to discuss before we call it a night?
I'm looking at that list of prompts here. I'll try and make noise so it's not just a bunch of silence because silence is bad in podcasting. Uh,
It's harder than it looks, isn't it? Doing
Side
the
note, I
podcast thing.
tried. No, so uh I tried doing a podcast, football podcast a couple of years ago.
Mm.
Um, I don't know how you do it, man. I made 30-minute episodes and was like, I don't know how to fill 30 minutes talking to a wall. I don't know how to do it. And you do hour and a half long shows. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like I had these full like notes and everything. Like I rewatched games and rewatched and rewatched, and I formulated all these thoughts in my head, and I would say everything I wanted to in 20 minutes. I'm like, well, I can't put out something that's 20 minutes and call it a podcast. And so I had to find stuff to do off the top of my head. It is hard, man.
Mm.
Um, I guess the only thing that I was kind of excited about, just because I like to make people think about this, was do you believe in aliens?
Oh, let's do it.
I love that question.
I
I love
so
that
I
question.
I definitely do. Like I don't know how we could be alone. It's kind of my but
Mhm.
I like this is what I like to think about. I think humanity must be like a forgotten science experiment or something. Like you make a terrarium and then the school closes down and the little ant farm in the science classroom just gets left behind. Like
Uh-huh.
we're like that. I think like we were genetically manipulated. Something went down and then we just got abandoned. I don't think that, but I like to like so I don't
Yeah.
have a definitive answer, but I like to
Mhm.
imagine that's what happened. It's like
It's a
that's
good
why we
thought
don't see
experiment.
aliens. It's because they don't fuck with us because we're just a thing they intentionally
Mhm.
left alone.
So this topic, naturally, because I'm me and I am a huge nerd, um, like beyond just like getting super into the nerdy aspects of like football and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just a nerd.
Dude,
And
same,
I
same.
love philosophical stuff. And so these kinds of things pop up on my YouTube a lot. Um, the how could we not be alone goes deeper than that. I don't know if it does for you or if that it kind of is just like a how could we not be alone? There's so much out there. I like to elaborate on that.
Please do.
Okay.
I live for this stuff.
Okay. I don't know if you remember this, just because we're going to talk about scale. A couple of years ago, I believe on Zach Shomler Talking, one of the really early episodes, I wrote like a 2-page long write in about Sagittarius A star, the black hole,
Mhm.
and how big it was,
Yeah.
right? And how it could fit the solar system like 100,000 times over inside of its event horizon, right? So, how could we not be alone? Sagittarius A star is the supermassive black hole at our galaxy center. It's a small supermassive black hole. Our galaxy is 100,000 light years across. It is 25 or no, 5,000 light years thick. There are hundreds of trillions of stars in our galaxy, which is a small, moderate sized galaxy. One of my favorite things that Neil deGrasse Tyson said, and this is actually in a quote, this is a quote from the end of an Avenged Sevenfold song, believe it or not. He has this whole monologue at the end. The song's called Exist. It's 15 minutes long, but if you want to look it up, cool ass song, Exist by Avenged Sevenfold. If we're going to give a recommendation, I guess, go listen to that. If you want to feel small, pay attention to Neil deGrasse Tyson's monologue at the end.
Say the song
What
again. What is it?
Exist by Avenged Sevenfold. Um, the whole album, the stage is really good. By the way, great album. It's a fucking theater production. It's amazing. Um, one of the lines that Neil deGrasse Tyson says is there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all of the world's beaches. In a
That's staggering.
handful of sand, there's like 10,000 grains of sand in a handful. There are billions of handfuls per beach. And sand is not just on the surface. Like this, the sand is like 8 or 10 feet thick. to get down to rock. And it's thicker in some places, thinner in others. But the point is, the average, I mean, you could probably assume is 10 to 20 feet, somewhere in there. And there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the world's beaches. Every star has an estimated 4 to 6 planets around it, of which, in most cases, at least one is in its star's habitable zone. Of those 4 to 6 planets, of which usually one or two is rocky. Of those rocky planets, usually one of them is Earth-sized. Whether it's in its habitable zone or not, whatever. Habitable zone is also just a human construct because liquid water.
That's assuming that whatever's life out there is
Yeah.
similar to humans.
Yeah. We
Let
don't know if there's
alone
methane-based life out there.
whatever crazy shit might just be out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's what really gets me is like, what if they're not like us at all?
Mhm. Yeah. So, like, let's bring it back just to the Milky Way. Let's forget about the rest of the universe because we're never going to know.
Yeah.
We're never going to know beyond our arm of the Milky Way, most likely. But let's bring it back just to the Milky Way and our few 10 trillion. What is it? Is it hundreds of billions of stars or a couple trillion? I don't remember exactly. But the point is, of these stars, on average, most stars have at least one planet that is rocky in its habitable zone. We call those Earth-like planets because they're roughly Earth-sized and they're roughly where liquid water could exist in some form at some point on the planet for some part of the year. That means that there are hundreds of millions of habitable planets in our galaxy alone.
In our tiny corner of the universe
There are
alone.
tens of trillions of galaxies. Sit there and
Fuck,
tell me
dude.
that we are fucking alone.
It feels really closed-minded of people to say that. And I don't trust anyone who says anything definitively. It's like, I don't know how you could possibly feel like, you're certain about anything related to space. Like, it's
Mm.
an endless, it just, to me, like, the scale. And I think if I understand it right too, like, the universe is always expanding too, which I
Yeah.
don't, my brain like literally doesn't even fully understand how that's
Well, and
possible.
it's
Like,
not just always expanding, it's always accelerating. It's constantly getting bigger exponentially.
I don't even understand how that works. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my brain processes that information and I hear it and I go, yeah. But then my brain is like, but how
Mm.
does that work in theory? Like, because we're so small, we're so insignificant, And it's like, I
Mhm.
don't know, man. Like it. So when
Well,
I say
here's
I don't think we could possibly be alone, it means a lot to you because it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
no shit, dude. Like, no
Yeah. No, I
shit. We're
literally
like,
I literally put on my note for that question, I said, duh. Yeah, I don't personally, I don't know where this idea came from, particularly in Christianity of we are alone. I think it comes from the fact that in this, because I say this because I was raised Christian. I don't necessarily identify as Christian anymore, but I was raised that way. I think it comes from the fact that in the Christian faith, humans are singularly God's greatest creation is man. That is it. We are perfect. The earth is perfect. It's a masterpiece. He created the earth. He did not create anything else out. He did not give life to anything else. The earth is sacred. But why does it have to be that way? Because I don't
I
know that
also
it's ever
think
said. I don't know that
it's
it's
a
ever
bit
specifically
wild to
said
say
in the
like,
Bible.
we're so special. We're the only. That's what it seems
Uh
very
huh.
egotistical for humans to say. Like, we're
Yeah.
so special. We're the only things there are. It's like, I think you're a bit full of yourself. Like,
So this mentality here is also said in that same song. Exist. Um, and it's something that Neil deGrasse Tyson has said for a long time. He calls it the cosmic perspective. He says in that song, when I look at the stars, essentially I'm paraphrasing here, when I look at the stars in the Milky Way, I see beyond the plight of humans. I see a universe that is ever expanding within the four-dimensional fabric of space and time. That is a direct quote. And then he says a couple other things, and then basically goes on to say that we are doomed unless we once again embrace the cosmic perspective. To him, the cosmic perspective is you, in the best sense, are worthless. You are a speck of dust on a speck of dust, orbiting a speck of glowing dust in a collection of dust. You are nothing. So why are you so important? Why does your existence individually mean more than the rest of humanity? Why does your existence mean more than the health of the earth? Why does your belief in whatever you believe have to dictate what we do as a species? We can be an not intergalactic, but interstellar species one day. We could. We could. But we have to get out of this singular human mindset.
Yeah. How do we? How does that hurt us? Do you think? Tell me more about that.
It comes back to the complacency is the enemy of progress thing that I said. To
Yeah.
me, that comes back to
Yeah.
that. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where I ended up with that little phrase is I watched a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love his philosophical discussions and his astronomical discussions and stuff like that because I like to feel small. Um,
You
it
like
keeps you
that feeling.
grounded. I love that. I love feeling. That's why
Mm.
I love climbing mountains. I love feeling puny,
How does
not in
that
like a
frame
weird
your
way.
perspective? No. But how does that
Right.
frame like every day? Does it help to
Mhm.
feel small and insignificant?
It does because like I can have all these cool experiences and that's great for me,
Mm.
but doesn't matter to you. My
Mm.
experiences don't matter to you. It doesn't matter to all of the really cool people that I've met in your Discord, by the way, which is really fun. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to my mom. Sure, it matters emotionally,
Yeah.
but for the well being of you, them, her, what I experience does not matter.
Mm.
What does matter is how we all interact as a species and how we can stay healthy and like how we can progress and make sure we don't choke ourselves because that's what we're doing. I'm not trying to be on a soapbox here, but like
Oh yeah. The way we
that's
treat
what's
the planet,
happening.
for sure. We're
And
slowly killing ourselves.
mhm. And to essentially reiterate Neil deGrasse Tyson, we will not break out of that cycle of destruction, of murder and suicide and overindulgence, gluttony, greed,
Selfishness.
selfishness. We will not break out of that until you accept and embrace this perspective of you are one piece of one piece of one piece of this entity, not even thing. Think of in this perspective, in this context, think of the universe as an entity. You are one piece of one piece of one piece of this entity that you cannot comprehend the size of. All you can do and all we can do is make sure we're there to experience it.
Mm. What do you think aliens think of us if they're out there? If they can't observe us, what do you think they make of us?
We're mice.
Yeah. And
We're
we're an
mice.
embarrassment, I would think. At least I feel embarrassed about how
Or,
our
I
species
mean,
operates.
okay, that's one way to look at it. You could also look at it as they're learning a hard lesson. Not necessarily we're an embarrassment, but that's another thing. And this could get into a whole conversation about the great filter that I would love to get into, but it's getting late. Um,
What is the great filter? What does that mean?
the great filter is essentially it's this metaphorical point that can exist in a few different places. That is a bottleneck in the development of a society. Um, We don't know where it is, and you don't know where it is until you either pass it or hit it. And if you've passed it, you don't know that you've passed it. So you don't know if you're going to hit it. But once you hit it, you annihilate yourself, basically. So the Great Filter could have been the evolution of us as a species. Maybe we passed the Great Filter. The Great Filter could have been civilization, whether or not you civilize. If you don't civilize and you stay agrarian and rural and nomadic, you're never going to develop technology. You just can't. You literally cannot. So if you don't develop structured society, there's your filter. Maybe you do that. Then you chug along, then some disease happens. The Black Plague could have been our filter. Didn't kill us all, killed a lot of people, but didn't kill us all, but it could have, and that could have been the filter. Disease can be the filter. Well, that's pretty existential. That can happen anytime, so let's move along. War. In 1914, we realized, hey, we're really good at killing a lot of people really fast with these machine gun things. That could have been our downfall. That could have been the Great Filter. Well, we made it past that. World War II happened. We developed nuclear technology. We're going to use this for good. 5 years later, we turned it into weapons of mass destruction. That could still be the Great Filter. Yeah. The advent of it is not. But as soon as somebody pushes that button, that could be the filter. Well, we don't know. Maybe the advent of it in itself in the wrong society is enough to be the filter. Because you create this weapon of mass destruction, the wrong person gets their hands on it, done. That's it. No more. Maybe that is the filter, so maybe we've passed that. Maybe the filter is there's literally no technology that can save us. We're doomed because we didn't follow the right path. That could be the Great Filter. The Great Filter could be another alien race that annihilates us. So my point is that we don't know. But the Great Filter is a bottleneck in the path of a society that either you make it out the other side and become prosperous, and you can essentially expand to another level of civilization, or you die and you are no more. And we don't know where that is. And that plays into the Fermi Paradox, which is another song on that album, by the way, that Exist is on. That plays into the Fermi Paradox. Why don't we see aliens? Well, maybe there's this great filter, and we just, yeah, you can see how quickly this all starts to become intertwined and highly complex and extremely existential, and it's all thought experiments. None of this is hard science. This is all up here.
Yeah. It's all theory and fun.
Yeah.
It's fun exercises to think about.
I will push back on calling it theory because we're in the context of science. A theory is proven.
What would you call it?
A thought experiment.
Yeah. The most
It's
fun.
unprovable. It's unprovable.
Yeah.
It's unprovable. You can't prove it. That's literally the whole premise of this filter is you can't prove it. Which is why it's a thought experiment. No, theories are proven replicable scientific outcomes. Scientific laws are undisprovable, like gravity, right? That is a law of physics. The theory of string theory is a theory because it's mathematically proven, but it has not been unbreakably proven like a law is. This is nothing more than a thought experiment. Everything I just said in the last 10 minutes is all just a thought experiment. It doesn't mean shit. It's fun.
I learned a lesson from this episode today, right? I give people this list of questions, and really I think the first question I should ask, other than like, what's your name, is what topics do you want to talk about? Because I think we could have gone for 2 hours about this. I would love to have you back on someday to talk about space and like only space. Because I
cool.
love this topic. Like, this is the shit that I live for. Like, I get nerdy about this. That's the YouTube videos I watch. or like space stuff, so thought experiment stuff, and like how to survive in the wilderness. Like those are the two things that I pay attention to as like for myself as like a consumer of YouTube. Like that's what I
Mhm.
watch.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I also, if only to save my own ass, I want to make sure that everybody understands I'm just a dude who thinks this is fun. And I
Yeah.
probably said some things wrong, and I know that my numbers about the stars is incorrect. I know that my ratio of
Yeah.
planets to stars in a star system is incorrect. I'm fairly certain about that. The only things that I know for sure that I said correctly were those quotes from that song. Like that's the only thing I know for
Yeah,
sure that
sure.
is exactly correct.
But the
Um,
point remains the same that
but
we're
yeah,
small and insignificant. Like
yeah, that
don't
that's the
miss the
thing.
forest through the trees. Like
Mhm.
the point is that like we are so small and the world out there is this, the universe is insanely like bigger than we can even comprehend is like the
Yeah,
point. And it's
yeah.
like, man, and there's so many ways we can like fuck this up. This the planet we have that we take so for granted. Like there's so many ways we're ruining it and not appreciating it enough. And
Mhm.
it's really sad to me. It's like, oh fuck.
All right. One more quick fun thing just to talk about
Please,
scale. This last
please.
thing is super fast. I promise. It's
No
super
worry.
fast.
I'm more worried about your time than my time. I don't give a fuck. I could
I
do
ju-
this forever.
all I have to do is eat dinner and go to bed. That's all I got to do.
Yeah, same. Yeah, yep.
um,
Same.
yeah. And not irritate my wife for going to bed at 11 o'clock again. Okay. The last thing here that that came to mind. Speaking of scale, obviously atoms are incomprehensibly small, right? You know the number of Google, 1 times 10 to the 100th power.
Yeah.
It's a 1 with 100 zeros, right? You know the number of Googleplex?
Yeah.
It is 1 times 10 to the 100 to the 10th power.
Oh fuck.
And essentially, that ends up being a Google times, is what that number comes out to. Because when you add another power, it's actually 10 times more powerful than the power below it because it's powering a power, right? There are not enough atoms in the universe to write the number of zeros in a Googleplex. That number has so many zeros that there is not enough atoms in the universe to write all of the zeros that you need to actually write that number down. I am 98% sure that that is a fact. I heard it somewhere. And I'm pretty sure it was from a math YouTube channel. Again, that's a YouTube channel, but generally the math things are pretty accurate because math is math. It's math. It doesn't change. Unless you get into theoretical physics, then it might change. But um, no, there you go. There you go. There's a fun one.
Dude, I'm glad to have you on. It's cool. And it's aside from like the podcast, it's just cool to like put a face to the name and like talk to you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like cuz I feel like we've been interactive for so long, like for
Mhm.
years. And I don't know, man. I hope we do this
Yeah,
again
it's
someday.
cool.
We get a beer in Eugene. This is the kind of shit I live for. And
Yeah, for sure. It'd be cool.
thank you for like taking the time to talk to me. It's been I hope you enjoyed it because I love this. I
Oh
really
yeah,
enjoy
that
it.
was fun. It was fun. That was
Hell
fun.
yeah, dude.
Um, this is very weird. Uh, I'm going to shout out myself on the Discord for anyone who's watching from the SOS Discord. Um, so you can put a face to the name, even though I think I have my face as my picture on Discord. Uh, my Discord name is Captain Cat 15. So there you go. You just got to listen to me rant and bullshit for 2 hours.
Hell yeah,
If
man.
you manage to make it to the end of that,
No, the Discord's like my one of my favorite parts of like what
I love
SOS
the
has
Discord,
become. It's
man.
this little weird community that's just like
We're just a bunch of
that.
football
I mean, like
weirdos.
SOS in general is like such a fun. It's just a community. Like at this point, that's what it is, and it's like so fun
Mhm.
for me. I don't know.
Yeah, super fun. I love that Discord.
Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, we'll talk soon. I appreciate you so much. I just thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. That was really fun.